Welcome to the Audio Renaissance Tapes presentation of End the Struggle and Dance with Life. Written by Susan Jeffers, Ph.D., and read for you by the author. Susan Jeffers has helped millions of people overcome their fears and move forward in life with confidence and love. She is the author of many books and tapes, including Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Dare to Connect, Opening Our Hearts to Men, The Journey from Lost to Found, Thoughts of Power and Love, plus her Fearless series of affirmation books and tapes, including Inner Talk for Peace of Mind, Inner Talk for a Confident Day, and Inner Talk for a Love That Works. Now I am pleased to present Dr. Susan Jeffers.
I'm so pleased to bring you End the Struggle and Dance with Life. As I travel around the world in my role as author, workshop leader, and public speaker, I'm struck by the battle with life that so many of us seem to be waging. We worry, obsess, and endlessly try to control everyone and everything around us. One might speculate that much of our unrest comes from a bad economy, rampant crime, terrible diseases, environmental disasters, and on a more personal level, trouble in relationships, lack of money, job dissatisfaction, family responsibilities, and the like. It's logical that all this bad news is at the root of our worry, anger, and frustration. And yet, are these potentially devastating circumstances the real cause of our constant struggle with life? Well, they certainly offer us a great challenge, but we need to look a little deeper. If you're a people watcher, as I am, you will notice a very intriguing difference in the way people react to potentially devastating situations. Some react with despair, and some with serenity. What makes this puzzling difference? After much research and personal experience, I have come to the conclusion that those who approach life with serenity rather than struggle have looked beyond the bad news and mastered the art of dancing with life. And to me, dancing with life is moving into the flow of our experiences, good or bad, with a feeling of harmony, trust, gratitude, and love. Let me repeat that. Dancing with life is moving into the flow of our experiences, good or bad, with a feeling of harmony, trust, gratitude, and love. You may be thinking, I have trouble flowing with the good. How can I ever learn to flow with the bad? Well, you've come to the right place. I wrote Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway to help you feel more powerful in the face of your fears. Clearly, handling our fears is an essential part of the tapestry of a life well lived. End the Struggle and Dance with Life was written to help you with an equally important part of this great tapestry, easing the strain of everyday living and bringing into life more enjoyment, appreciation, and peace. What I teach comes largely from my own journey, and this audio program is no exception. Over the years, I've come a long, long way on this issue of dancing with life, and I'm amazed at how obvious are the causes of our upsets in life, big and small. I'm reminded of the ancient saying, the road is smooth. Why do you throw rocks before you? Well, we all throw rocks before us. One thing I've learned with certainty is that it's very hard to dance on rocks. So let's begin clearing the debris to make way for a more joyful, peaceful, and abundant life. I have sitting on my desk a pink quartz statue of a laughing Buddha. There is a look of ecstasy on his face, as if he is basking in the warmth of the glorious sun. Legend has it that he is ecstatic because, contrary to most of us in today's world, he has discovered that the true joy in life does not come from something out there. True joy comes from something wondrous within him. He knows that the something wondrous is ever present and always accessible. As a result, he feels free, safe, complete, and truly able to dance with life. I believe that this something wondrous exists within us all. It is a place where we too can feel free, safe, complete, and truly able to dance with life. It is a place that is the source of all the divine qualities, such as love, caring, intuition, strength, appreciation, joy, bliss, and gratitude. When we live in a wondrous place, which I call the higher self, we can't help but take into our being many of the qualities of the laughing Buddha. We are free to enjoy the best that life has to offer. The good news is that we can begin the journey toward that something wondrous within our being right now, right where we are, and with the tools that are presently in our grasp. All we need is an awareness that there is more to life than the petty pace at which most of us live our lives today. Once that awareness is there, the journey inward to the higher self can begin. Life can expand to encompass a world that is huge with possibility. To offer you a strong inducement to make that journey an integral part of your life, let me make it clear that bringing a spiritual dimension into all that we do is essential for ending the struggle and dancing with life. I remember taking off in an airplane on a very cloudy day. The plane climbed and climbed through the fog and dense cloud cover. It was very dark and gloomy, and to some very frightening. At one point, the clouds began to lighten, and all of a sudden, the plane burst through the glorious light of the sun. It was hard to believe that reaching a place of intense clarity and light was simply a matter of rising above the clouds. It occurred to me that my experience in the plane was a great metaphor for how many of us live our lives. Most of the time, we are immersed in fog and heaviness, not understanding that all we have to do is learn how to fly above the clouds. And that's what transcending to the level of the higher self allows us to do. Transcend the petty and focus on what is truly wonderful about living. There are many ways to get in touch with the higher self, the spiritual part of we are. One of the most delightful stories demonstrating this fact comes from Ram Dass. In the early 1970s, he was addressing a room full of flower children, many of whom had found their spiritual awakening through the use of psychedelic drugs. As he describes it, most of them were wearing white, with flowers around their necks, and they were smiling a lot. Ram Dass certainly fit into the scene with his long beard and beads. As he looked out into his audience, his vision was drawn to an elderly woman sitting in the front row. Her Oxford shoes, little hat with fake cherries, and black patent leather bag didn't fit the picture. As he talked, he noticed her nodding with an obvious sense of agreement to what he was saying. The more far out and outrageous his lecture became, the more she nodded. When the lecture was over, she came up and thanked him profusely for his wisdom and let him know that everything he talked about was also her experience of the universe. In great confusion, he asked, "How do you know? What have you done that has given you these kinds of out-of-this-world experiences?" She leaned forward and said to him conspiratorially, "I crochet." It was then that he understood that there are many ways to the same destination. Her pathway into a spiritual or transcendent state was crocheting. I'll wager that crocheting is not your pathway into the spiritual part of who you are, nor are psychedelic drugs. But no matter where you are in your life's journey, there are many simple and joyous, life-transforming ways to the higher self, many of which are revealed in this audio program. These include learning how to release, how to let go of the many actions and beliefs that presently keep us drowning in struggle, and how to embrace, to take in the incredible beauty and richness in our lives that up until now have gone virtually unnoticed. When I was a little girl, my father used to tell me that life is a mass of boredom, interjected with a few exquisite moments. Poor Dad, he didn't know life could be any other way. And for many years, I believed him, but not anymore. I wish he were still alive so that I could tell him that he was mistaken, that, in fact, even with the tears that are a normal part of living, life can be a mass of exquisite moments, interjected with a few moments of boredom, and I would lovingly show him how to put more exquisite moments in his life. Well, he isn't alive today, but you are, and I've got this program to introduce more and more moments of exquisiteness into your life. It won't happen overnight, but with each little step, you will find life getting better and better and better and better. A Tibetan Lama once crossed the Himalayas on foot during the Chinese occupation of his country. When asked how he had managed such a difficult journey, he answered, "That's simple, one step at a time." That's all it takes, one step at a time. Be good to yourself and begin the journey now. An old woman, when asked why she was always cheerful, replied, "Well, I wear this world just as a loose garment." What a lovely image, wearing this world just as a loose garment. What came to me when I first saw this quotation were the words free, easy, soft, flexible, flowing, dancing. Yes, that's the way we all want to wear life. Most of us, however, wear it like a girdle, tight, hard, rigid, uncomfortable, and constricting. What stops us from wearing the world as a loose garment? When we look for an answer to this question, our tendency is to look around and blame everything on what is wrong in our lives and in our world. Thankfully, our consciousness is beginning to change. We are awakening to the fact that when things are not all right in our external world, something is not all right within our being. As we take a look inside, we notice that something about our inability to let go suggests an addiction to control. Sound familiar? The good news is that addictions can be overcome. We don't have to live a life controlled by our need to control. We can learn how to let go, thus feeling more comfortable, soft, flexible, and flowing with life, like wearing the world just as a loose garment. I believe that all addictions are a function of the lower self. Let me introduce you to the lower self. The lower self is the part of us that absorbs the teachings of our society and as a result is caught in the treadmill of more, better, best. The lower self has heard all the admonitions and believes that the world is out to get us. The lower self acts as a frightened parent who does not trust our ability to handle all the real or imagined threats in our life. The lower self has no vision and does not understand that all situations in our life, good or bad, can be used as a teaching for our highest good. Because of all of the above, any time there is any sign of a real or imagined external threat, the lower self automatically triggers our need to control. The way we can handle our addiction to control, therefore, is to pull ourselves away from the fear tactics of our self and rise to the level of our higher self, the spiritual part of who we are, where we find true safety. When we do, we learn that the higher self is the dwelling place of all good things, such as love, power, creativity, joy, satisfaction, and abundance. The higher self knows that we have the strength to handle anything that can ever happen to us. The higher self doesn't see the outside world as a threat to our lives. It sees it as a place to learn and grow and contribute. The higher self has great vision and can guide us to where we need to go with lives. The higher self knows that all situations in our lives, good or bad, can be used as a teaching for our highest good. In the realm of the higher self, there is no need to control everything and everyone around us. We can say to ourselves, it's all happening perfectly. Whatever happens in my life, I'll handle it. I'll learn from it. I'll make it a triumph. For the skeptics out there, I know the concept of the higher self and lower self may be hard to accept. If you are one of them, I ask you to scan the events of your own life. As you do, you will realize that there were moments when everything was a struggle and fear dominated your emotions. There were other moments when everything seemed to flow and you were at peace. I am simply identifying the former moments as lower self moments and the latter as higher self moments. Given this differentiation, I'm sure you will agree that the key to ending the struggle and dancing with life is to create as many higher self moments in your life as you can, despite what is happening in your external world. The irony inherent in our attempts to control everyone and everything around us is the fact that very little in the world is controllable. Even when we think we are controlling something or someone out there, our efforts are misplaced. In truth, the only thing we can effectively control is our reactions to whatever life hands us. Let me repeat that. The only thing we can effectively control is our reactions to whatever life hands us. And in the final analysis, what can be more powerful than that? When we are in control of our reactions, we can be battered by the world around us and still maintain inner sense of peace. So let's look at a number of areas in our lives and see how we can release our addiction to control by rising above the addictive demands of the lower self to the truly powerful level of the higher self. As you listen, think carefully about your own life and begin to see how you can personalize the suggestions I make. Remember, if you have external freedom but never rise above the level of the lower self, you will never feel free. If you have internal freedom and are able to rise above the level of the lower self, you will always feel free, despite what is happening externally. Your inner peace has nothing to do with the dramas of your life. When you find your way to your higher self, the Buddha inside of you will truly begin to laugh. Now here's a thought for you. All his life, a man struggles to reach the top of the ladder, and finally he does, only to discover it's against the wrong wall. Whew, that's a concept to send shivers down your spine, spending your whole life climbing a ladder, only to discover it's against the wrong wall. Could the wise person who wrote these words be describing what is happening to many of us today? I'm afraid so. Think about it. If we had our ladder resting on the right wall, with every step we took, we would feel more joyous, more fulfilled, happier, lighter, and all good things. But look around. With every step we take, too many of us find ourselves overworked, hassled, and pulled in every direction with little payoff. So what terrible wall do we have our ladder resting on? That wall, of course, is the wall leading to success. At a very young age, we were trained by all those who had our best interests at heart to climb the ladder to success. The truth is that we could climb and climb that ladder to success forever and never find the joy and satisfaction we are all seeking. I believe that the root of the problem has to do with our present-day definition of success. Webster's dictionary defines it as the attainment of wealth, position, honors, or the like. Well, that sounds worthy, but there are 3 essential flaws in this definition. 1. The focus is only on the end product. Nothing is said about the quality of our life as we make that climb up the ladder. Is it success when we give up a balanced and full life to pursue our wealth, position, honors, and the like? Or mess up our relationships, or have a lousy time along the way? Not in my book. Making it is painful in the context of an empty life. 2. The focus is on competition instead of partnership. Making it is painful when we wake up each morning facing another battle to fight. 3. The focus is almost exclusively on external gain. Our present-day ladder to success ignores the attainment of inner riches, peace, joy, caring, love, appreciation, and gratitude, all of which are necessary for ending the struggle and dancing with life. The reason for all this bad news is that the basic tenets of success as we know it today are firmly situated in the seat of the lower self, and we already know that because the lower self is fear-based, it seeks control at all costs. Here, we cannot see the bigger picture. We cannot see the sun shining above the clouds. As we struggle to pull in all the goodies, we are pulled out of our center of power and love, and we find ourselves on the endless treadmill of more, better, best, more, better, best, more, better, best, exhausting. As a result, as we climb our ladder to success, instead of feeling like a somebody, we end up feeling like a nobody. We totally lose sight of that something wondrous within our being. And that, in a nutshell, is the failure of success as we know it today. So how do we even begin to let go of our destructive addiction to more, better, best and embrace happier and more productive alternatives? I suggest that we begin by investigating a new definition of success. It could look something like this. Success is living a full and balanced life in partnership with others to create a joyful feeling of love, contribution, appreciation, abundance, despite how our endeavors may turn out. Let me say that again. Success is living a full and balanced life in partnership with others to create a joyful feeling of love, contribution, appreciation, and abundance, despite how our endeavors may turn out. With this new definition of success, making it takes on a totally different meaning. It focuses on the process instead of the outcome. Life is to be enjoyed, and we are totally focused on the attainment of goals we have set for ourselves. We miss the expansiveness and richness of life now. We are constantly waiting for the big moment when our goals, dreams, desires, and aspirations will be fulfilled. Understand that I'm not suggesting that goals, dreams, desires, and aspirations be eliminated. They add a certain richness to life, yet we are foolish to depend on them for our happiness. Why put off living a rich life until our goals are achieved? Why not embrace the totality of life now? And then, if we delightfully achieve some of our goals, it's pure gravy, not the substance of our life. And just as important, even if we don't achieve some of our goals, we haven't missed a thing. We've had a wonderful time along the way. Living then becomes a moment-by-moment noticing of the enormity of our circle of being. We are feeling fulfilled whether we are spending an hour talking to a child, or making a grand decision as the head of a large corporation, or filling our garden with beautiful flowers, or writing a book, or washing the dishes, or volunteering to help raise money for a cause, or helping a friend get through a difficult time, or reading a book, or sitting and watching the sunset, or building a roaring fire, or preparing a delicious meal, or whatever. We realize that we are not simply machines trying to reach a destination. We are hearts and souls, vibrantly connect to everyone and everything around us each moment of every day. In this context, so-called ordinary everyday experiences become exquisite moments. That is substance of life. In contrast, goals are not about substance. They are about shadow. What I have been talking about is bringing more of the spirit into everyday life. Contrary to popular opinion, to be spiritual is not to get out of the world, but to be more fully in it, connected, joyful, and abundant. Paradoxically, you may be surprised to find that as you let go of the obsessiveness that the goal-oriented mentality creates, many more of your goals will be reached easily and effortlessly. There is something incredibly magnetic about people who thoroughly enjoy their lives, who are relaxed about the outcome of all their endeavors, and who have an aura of expansion and appreciation. These people automatically seem to draw to themselves the better things in life. Our new definition of success also moves us away from the more, better, best syndrome, which sets up an atmosphere of exhausting and self-destructive competition. We can begin letting go of this need to outrun and outdo and outclass and outshine everyone else by incorporating into our everyday vocabulary a very important word: enough. Enough is the amazing word that diminishes the power of more, better, best. It implies a sense of fullness and okayness. When we say, "I've had enough," at the end of a delicious meal, it means we are full and satisfied. We are not looking for more, better, best. The word enough has power behind it. When we include thoughts of enough in the deepest recesses of our being, we can begin to relax and smell the proverbial roses. Let me give you an example of how that works. A while ago, I gave a talk at an all-day symposium. 3 other speakers were on the schedule, all of whom were household names in the self-help field. As I was getting ready to walk on the stage to face 3,000 people in the audience, my adrenaline was flowing big time. My husband, Mark, kissed me on the cheek and whispered in my ear, "You'll be the best." In the past, I had loved hearing that. I needed to hear that. But this time, something didn't feel right about it. I suddenly became aware of the negative consequences of trying to be the best. It created tension, it created alienation from the speakers, and it took me off my higher self purpose, which was to help others. As this hit me, I whispered in Mark's ear while giving him a hug, "Thanks for the loving support, but next time, just say, 'You'll be good enough.'" And with that letting go of my need to be the best, I walked confidently onto the stage, knowing that my only purpose was to put love into this world, not to compete with other people who are trying to put their love into the world as well. It has been vehemently argued that competition is necessary in order for us to become better performers. This is certainly not always so. In this particular case, feeling relieved of the burden of having to be the best, I connected with my audience better than I ever had before. I flowed. I was at ease. I was there simply to give what I had to give, out of love, not out of fear of not being the best. Without the need to compete, I gave the best talk I had ever given. So much for competition being necessary to improve performance. The belief that we need to compete in order to expand our ability is part of the spiritual betrayal of the lower self. As we focus primarily on being the best we can be and spreading our gift into this world, we are truly free to move beyond our self-imposed limitations. Understand that it's not that excellence can't result from competition. It certainly can. But competition, as we know it today, is crazy-making and demoralizing. Why drive yourself crazy and live in a state of spiritual deprivation when there is an alternative? Excellence also results from the simple knowing that you have a higher meaning and purpose in this world in whatever form that takes. This knowing brings us peace and confidence. And as icing on the cake, when we have that sense of higher meaning and purpose, our performance is without equal. Our new definition of success also includes the internal measures of a life well lived: joy, love, contribution, appreciation, and abundance. When we focus only outward, we lose the essence of a life well lived, and we push away one of our greatest pillars of strength, our spiritual magnificence. In our society, we are not trained to use the power of the spiritual part of who we are, and it is a great power indeed. This is the hidden strength that emerges to lift a car if a loved one is trapped underneath. This is the hidden strength that emerges when we face really difficult times and come out enriched. This spiritual part of who we are holds wisdom and strength beyond our wildest dreams that can lead us to exactly where we need to go for our highest good, if we listen. Because we are not trained to use the power that lies within, we feel weak and overwhelmed much of the time. If we could train that muscle that leads us to our higher self, we would find our strength returning, and life wouldn't seem like such a struggle. In addition, we wouldn't be so addicted to external gratification. If something didn't go right in the world out there, we wouldn't be tossed down like a puppet on a string. We would have a place of peace to which we could return over and over again, a place that gives us the needed assurance that on a higher plane, it's all happening perfectly. This place of peace is always there, despite what is happening in the outside world. It is there when our business isn't doing well. It is there when our children are ill. It is there when we have bills to pay. It is there through all the difficulties and joys that life has to offer. When we come from a deep knowing that the place of peace is always there, and we have learned how to find it, then our feeling of struggle is greatly diminished. Hence, climbing the ladder to our new definition of success definitely includes learning how to embrace the power and love we hold inside. In this way, we need not depend on anything that is happening in the outside world. We have found our anchor in a stormy sea. The good news is that we can use all our experiences, good or bad, to teach us how to find the inner substance. In fact, sometimes our most difficult experiences speed the process. In truly difficult times, where else is there to go but inside? Using our worst times as tools for spiritual expansion takes us out of the realm of victim, a horribly powerless place to be, and puts us in the realm of creator of our own experience of life. That's powerful. If we are to be free to live a life that is truly worth living, there are other addictions we need to rid ourselves of. Very much related to our more, better, best society is our addiction to work. Workaholism is the obsessive need to be busy at the expense of a rich and balanced life. A workaholic lets this obsessive need override the importance of intimacy with family and friends, personal growth, quiet times, and the pleasure of play. Workaholics include not only those in the workforce, but also homemakers who feel they are never doing enough, and anyone who is driven to more, better, best. In all these cases, the addiction of workaholism causes us to struggle with living. Yet, with all the damage that workaholism creates, it has strangely been called a positive addiction. But is there such a thing as a positive addiction? Hardly. Addictions of any kind are a product of the lower self. They create struggle and take away our peace. Well, why do any of us become workaholics? There are many strongly held beliefs as to why we work so hard. Upon scrutiny, however, these beliefs hold no truth. For example, some of us believe that it is necessary to work in order to be a success in life. Yet it is said that Albert Einstein worked in the mornings and spent most of his afternoons sailing. Some of us believe that workaholism is conducive to good business practices. Yet studies show that compulsive, narrowly focused, competitive, tense individuals can't see the forest for the trees. Hence, creativity and productivity are hindered, not helped. I could go on with popularly held but erroneous reasons why people are workaholics. But let me get to some of the real reasons people are workaholics. As I see it, workaholism is a fix. It is an escape. It allows us to turn the other way so that we don't have to come face to face with our inner pain or our intense sense of emptiness or our lack of self-worth or our need for an identity or our drivenness to more, better, best or our ability to have meaningful relationships or our fear of not having enough or being enough. No wonder we want to escape. What are some ways we can cure ourselves of the painful addiction of workaholism? An effective way of dealing with a multitude of addictions is to attend one of the 12-step programs, all of which are based on spiritual principles. They are all derived from the original 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous. It is not surprising that there is now a 12-step program called Workaholics Anonymous, And for anyone on the treadmill of work, attending Workaholics Anonymous is one way to begin the healing process. Another way to begin the healing process is to incorporate spiritual practices into our everyday lives. Understand, spiritual practices do not necessarily have any religious connotations. They pertain to those tools that help us feel connected to our higher self, our place of inner strength, inner power, and inner love. Many of these practices are described in my previous works, and many more are included throughout this program. The purpose is to bring the healing voice of the higher self into our consciousness as we drown out the destructive chatter of our lower self. As our higher self becomes more dominant in our life, we are able to slow down and live a more balanced and rewarding life. Remember, the lower self punishes and the higher self rewards. Another important step in learning how to get rid of our workaholic tendencies is to learn how to say no. One of my favorite tools for ending the struggle and dancing with life is to say yes to the universe. In this case, say yes to saying no. Initially, saying no to tasks brought before us can bring on great anxiety. That's okay. Feel the fear and say no anyway. Very soon, you will realize that our motivation for doing most of the tasks brought before us has less to do with the tasks than it has to do with making ourselves feel more important or more secure or more wanted. As you break the self-destructive habit of taking on more than you can comfortably handle, you breathe a sigh of relief. Learning how to delegate is an important step in healing our addiction to work. As Jan Mitchell wisely advises us, let go and let someone else. Most of us are very arrogant. We think there is only one way to do things, our way. When we hold on to the reins in this way, we weave a complicated web for ourselves. It would simplify life a great deal if we really did let go and let someone else in his or her own way. This, of course, is not easy for us control freaks. We need to feel that it can only work our way. But by delegating, you allow others to give their gift to the world. By delegating, you can focus on the real reason you were hired. By delegating, you have more time to devote to family and friends. By delegating, you have the time to create a richer life, thus allowing you to be less emotionally dependent on your job. Delegating on the job is no different from delegating at home. When you give tasks to your children, you give them the message that they are an important, contributing member of your household. So many of our children seem to be horribly spoiled, and I believe it is their lack of a sense of self that makes them behave so badly sometimes. Making them a meaningful part of the household creates in them a sense that their life makes a difference. The benefits of delegating are enormous. The challenge is to learn how to turn over those tasks with some necessary instruction, then to get out of everyone's way. Praise the work that has been done, even if it is not done the way you would have done it. I suggest you start this delegation process very slowly with little tasks first. And as you do, practice letting go. Practice honoring someone else's effort. Practice praising others for their way, even if it's different from your way. Soon you will have much more loving relationships with everyone around you. At first, it's very frightening to alter our addictive need to work. We really believe that if we don't kill ourselves working, we won't have enough money, or we'll be lost in the shuffle, or others will think less of us, or whatever. Eventually, as we enter the realm of the higher self, we discover what life is truly about. It's about love, beauty, grace, ease, appreciation, and all those things that make life more joyous. Remember that a balanced life, one that is filled with the riches of play, intimacy with family and friends, alone time, and personal growth, helps us feel abundant. When we feel abundant, our addiction to work falls by the wayside, which is exactly where it belongs. Another related crazy-making addiction is our need for perfection. I know that one well. Our bodies have to be perfect. Our job performance has to be perfect. We have to be perfect mothers or fathers. We have to be the perfect boss. Our houses have to be cleaned perfectly. And on and on and on. Are you perfect yet? Neither am I. Nor will we ever be. We are all human beings doing the very best we can. And human beings weren't born to be perfect. We were born to learn, to grow, to expand, to love, to create, to enjoy, to see the beauty in all things, including ourselves. But we weren't born to be perfect. We need to let go of the need to be perfect. Why do so many of us focus on an impossible goal of perfection? Again, the quagmire of our lower self keeps us stuck in the idea that if we are not perfect, people will think less of us. That if we are not perfect, we are not good enough. The truth is, we are all good enough, and no one is perfect. Even the Buddhas have their days. Hence, our striving for perfection is one of the most useless, wasteful endeavors on which we spend our time. Even the most enlightened of us regularly trip and fall, and it's totally okay. The reason our addiction to perfection can be so devastating is that we believe our self-worth is measured by our performance. But since no one is perfect, it is impossible to attain self-worth through perfection. Do I detect another ladder resting on the wrong wall? How do we begin to change this self-destructive pattern? It helps to look once again at the power of enough in the context of our addiction to perfection. Here this wonderful word reminds us that when we have done our very best, win or lose, we have done enough. And we are enough. This higher self-reminder leads us to the place of peace and fulfillment. When the pangs of not good enough come creeping in from the voice of the lower self, simply drown it out with, I am good enough. I am good enough. Say it over and over again until your enoughness seeps into the deepest recesses of your being. If you don't get that job you were hoping to get, you are good enough. If you spend a lot of time preparing your report and your boss criticizes, you are good enough, and so on. Understand that the realization that you are good enough and that the results of your efforts are good enough is not an excuse to be sloppy and uncaring. It serves our sense of self to put a loving effort into whatever we do in life. But this loving effort needs to be totally detached from an addiction to perfection. Feelings of accomplishment and satisfaction do not come from striving to be perfect. They do come from the process of using our inner power, beauty, and love in a creative, expansive, positive, and loving way. There is another time our need to be perfect gets in the way of our enjoying life to the fullest. That is when we avoid doing something we've never tried before for fear we won't be good enough. God forbid, we might make a fool of ourselves. For example, I've seen too many people not get on that dance floor because they feel they can't dance as well as the others on the floor. They are missing out on a wonderful time. I love Linda Weltner's motto, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. If it's worth doing and you're having a great time doing it, who cares if you're doing it well or not? So you see that in order to end struggle and dance with life, we must learn to make enjoyment, not perfection, our goal. This movement of the ladder to a different wall makes the difference between a life lived with punishing self-doubt or one that is lived with a joyous spirit. One of the biggest weights we carry around with us has to do with our need to control other people in our lives. In this regard, I find the following quote from an unknown sage extremely enlightening. Never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time, and it annoys the pig. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that people in our life are pigs. It's that we waste an incredible amount of time in our futile attempts to make others into something they're definitely not. Whether it's about changing the thoughts and actions of our wives, husbands, children, parents, siblings, friends, or whomever, we are barking up the wrong tree. when we try to change people, which is the same thing as controlling them, we are going against the grain, the essence of who they are at this point in their lives. We are blind to the fact that they have their own journey, their own lessons to learn, their own capabilities, their own purpose. They were brought into this world with a different agenda from ours. Therefore, it is wise to get out of their way and let them become who they are meant to become. Codependency, as it is known today, is an inability to establish healthy boundaries between ourselves and others. As a result, their behavior determines our self-esteem, happiness, and sense of peace and flow. This inability to establish boundaries sets up an addictive need to control other people's behavior. We must try to control their behavior since we can't control our own. Unfortunately, this is an exercise in futility. The following image is wonderful for helping you cut codependent attachments. Close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, see the person you are trying to control or change standing in front of you. Imagine an umbilical cord holding the two of you together so that when one moves, the other has to move. Feel the discomfort, pain, and sense of imprisonment this attachment creates. Not a great environment for ending the struggle and dancing with life. Now, in your mind's eye, see yourself picking up a huge pair of scissors and cutting the cord. Feel the instant relief, freedom, and peace this allows. Take a deep breath and notice how you've set the both of you free. Move around and notice that the other person is not forced to move with you. And notice that when the other person moves, you are free to stand on your own, tall and whole. Repeat this powerful visualization every time you are tempted to run someone else's life, or if you are allowing someone to run yours, which is really the other side of the same coin. Sometimes those with whom we are codependent don't really want to be set free. They imagine their survival to be tied up with their connection to us. We assure them of our love and communicate our trust that they will have the strength to handle their own lives. As far as I am concerned, this is the ultimate in loving, caring, but not controlling. Of course, when children are young, guidance and appropriate discipline is necessary. Of course, there is a place for our being there for others in the role of friend, coach, or model, but being a crutch or critic doesn't serve anyone. In the end, we need to create our own happiness by detaching from our dependency on others. If peace in your heart is dependent on how other people are going to act, you are living in the realm of the lower self, and you will constantly be in conflict. As you cut that cord, you are free to live in the realm of the higher self, where your happiness is dependent only on the realization that you are a powerful and loving person who has much to give to this world. Barry Stevens wrote, "Be careful what you set your heart upon, for someday it shall be yours. And when I unset my heart upon something, I breathe more deeply and feel more free. Narrow escape." Barry has put her finger on one of the most important areas of our life that needs release: our expectations about the way things are supposed to be. We set our heart on so many things: on a beautiful day for our garden party, on our children growing up to be the way we want them to be, on making lots of money from our investments, on being married until death do us part, and on and on and on. Sometimes things work out the way we expect them to, and sometimes they don't. Whether they do or whether they don't, holding on to expectations creates an enormous amount of worry, conflict, and struggle. We diminish the present as we worry about the future. We don't enjoy the preparation for our outdoor party as we concern ourselves about the weather. We don't enjoy the miracle of our children's growth as we worry about how they will turn out. We don't enjoy the abundance in our lives now as we worry about the future of our investments. We twist ourselves all out of shape to please our mate so that our marriage will last until death do us part. In essence, we lose the freedom to soar that comes from enjoying the vast riches that life has to offer in the here and now. What if you knew your life would work beautifully even if it rained the day of the party, even if your children didn't turn out the way you might have hoped, and if you lost money in your investments, even if your marriage didn't last? When we let go of our expectations about events in our life being a certain way, we can allow ourselves the peaceful thought that it's all happening perfectly, no matter how it turns out. You can see how important it is for you to learn how to unset your heart. By definition, setting your heart on something is entering into a state of rigidity. Unsetting your heart is entering a state of flow. I am often asked, how can you set any goals in life without having expectations? This is my answer. Set as many goals as you want. Picture exactly what you would like to happen. With loving effort, do the necessary work to bring the desired results to fruition. And when you are satisfied that you have done as much as you can, let go of the outcome. In this way, you release any expectation about how it will all turn out. You relax into the flow of life's adventure, knowing that in the grand scheme of things, life truly is happening perfectly. As John Lubbock wisely stated, when we have done our best, we should await the results in peace. The truth is that we are not capable of seeing beyond our limited vision and into the grand possibilities that life has to offer. Sometimes, when things don't turn out as we want them to, we are later shown how they really did turn out perfectly for our highest good. Either we learned a valuable lesson or a better opportunity presented itself. Let me show you how this works. Imagine that you are angry because you didn't get the job you were hoping to get. It doesn't seem fair that someone who is not as qualified as you got the job instead. In addition to being angry, you are worried about what this means for your future success. Your lower self is giving you the messages of gloom and doom and telling you over and over again you're not good enough to succeed. Heavy baggage indeed. It's at this time that you need to remind yourself that you have two choices. One is to let this incident destroy your peace of mind and keep weighing you down. Then not only didn't you get the job, you also made yourself miserable. The other alternative is to turn it over to the wisdom within, your higher self, with the instruction, take over now. I trust there is a good reason for my not getting the job, and I trust this outcome was for my highest good. I trust you will tell me exactly what I need to know and exactly what I need to do about this situation. When I say turn it over, I mean turn it over. And when I say trust, I mean trust. My own experiences in life have convinced me that things happen in our lives for very good reasons. Our very limited minds may not understand it all, but the spiritual part of who we are understands perfectly. So when doubt comes creeping in, as it always will, it serves our peace of mind to keep repeating to ourselves over and over again that wonderful affirmation, it's all happening perfectly. While none of us understands the grand design, we can commit to using all our experiences, good or bad, as the building blocks of a powerful and loving life. Then it is indeed all happening perfectly. Once you have turned it over to your higher self, you then pay attention to the messages you are given through your intuition, which gives you valuable messages from the wisdom within. And you use the many spiritual tools available today to quiet the mind so that you are able to hear what is the powerful and loving way to go in any situation in your life. With the enormous peace of mind that the thought, "It's all happening perfectly," gives you, you move forward with the assurance that there is a meaning and purpose to it all. A popular sentiment in recent years is, "Be careful what you ask for, you might get it." Since we don't know in our logical mind what is for our highest good, we indeed have to be very careful about what we ask for. The job that we ask for might turn out to be the proverbial job from hell. When I don't get something I had been setting my sights on, I have learned to remind myself that obviously something else will come along that will be for my highest good. This wasn't it. And I stop hanging on to any disappointment I had. If I don't remind myself of this higher possibility, I suffer much unnecessary pain when things don't work out as I had planned. I know all of this is easier said than done. The fear that exists in the realm of the lower self will pop up over and over again, and you will need to reassure yourself over and over again that all is well. Ironically, when our negative emotions seem to be at their worst, that is, when we are most needy of a connection with our higher self, our distress makes us forget that this amazing source of power and love exists. Therefore, we need to find ways of staying conscious of the fact that we have drifted far from home and simply need to find our way back again. Again, we stay conscious by developing daily practices that serve as constant reminders, such as those I am talking about throughout this program. When incorporated into everyday life, these practices lighten everything we do. When you learn to unset your heart in this way, you have learned the secret of flowing with the energy of the universe, of ending the struggle, and dancing with life. When we jump to the level of the higher self, we are greatly relieved to find the guarantee we have been looking for. And that guarantee is this: no matter what life decides to hand me, I'll handle it. That's a pretty powerful guarantee. Do you see the peace this assurance of our inner power brings us? No matter what life decides to hand us, we will be able to handle it. We can never control life in any other way. Yes, life is filled with surprises, but with the inner knowing that we can handle anything life hands us, we don't have to worry about the future any longer. We can get on with life with a feeling of freedom and adventure. We can even begin to enjoy the mysteries instead of feeling threatened by them. Wherever life takes us, we'll be okay. To help you get in touch with what it feels like to let go of your resistance to life, listen to the following visualization over and over again, preferably with your eyes closed. It provides a very healing image. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a beautiful, flowing river in the middle of a rich, green valley. You're curious as to where the river is flowing. You decide it's time to find out. A sturdy-looking rowboat sits at the side of this wonderful flowing river. How handy. You climb right in, and then notice that there aren't any oars. The feeling of safety and adventure, you know that you don't need any oars, that you're going to let the boat take you where it wants to go. You climb in and untie the rope that holds the boat to the shore, and your journey begins. You sit up tall and eager, determined to enjoy the journey no matter where it takes you. You take a deep breath and relax as you feel the boat drawn into the flow of the river. Knowing you have no control over where you are going, you say to yourself, I let go and allow the river to carry me to new adventures. I trust that I am safe. Just feel the freedom as the boat carries you forward. You know you will hit bumpy times, and you know you will hit times of great calm. They are all part of the journey. You know you will enjoy the mystery of wherever your sturdy boat is taking you. And you know that when the journey is over, you will be glad to have tasted it all. What a beautiful image. In so many ways, our life is like that journey. We've all been born as passengers. Time is taking us, body, mind, and soul, to new places every moment of every day. And we have to develop the trust that our little boat, our higher self, knows the way. My little boat has certainly taken me down pathways I never could have found by myself. The more I allow myself to tune into my higher self for guidance, the more my need to control the future disappears, and the more wonderful this journey called life becomes. Developing this kind of trust requires our constantly using our spiritual tools. Even when we think we have the hang of it, new situations arise that bring up our need to control. But the more we find ways of dwelling in the house of our higher self and trusting the grand design, the easier it is for us to let go of our need to control. I'm often asked how it can all be happening perfectly in a world of wars, fires, earthquakes, killing, and on and on. My answer is, I don't know. But what I do know is that our human minds are not capable of understanding the grand design. I don't know the larger dimensions of the universe that are beyond my grasp as an ordinary mortal. What I have been learning to do is simply trust. There have been many times when I haven't understood why certain things have happened in my life. Much later, however, the great miracle of it all was revealed to me. I didn't understand why my first marriage didn't work out. I later learned that there was much I had to learn about becoming whole, and for me, being on my own was a necessary step. I didn't understand why I had breast cancer. I later learned how much a life-threatening illness teaches us about enjoying life in the present. So I have decided to work on trusting that there are reasons for all that is happening on this earth to each and every one of us. I may never understand what these reasons are, but that is irrelevant. When trust is there, explanations are unnecessary. I have been humbled by the miracles I have seen all around me. I no longer have to know all the whys. I have accepted the fact that there is so much I don't know. There is so much I will never know. So when your lower self asks why, just say to it, I don't know, but I trust it's all happening perfectly, all part of the grand design. Of course, letting the boat carry us down the river does not mean simply sitting at home waiting for life to happen. It certainly is up to us to take some action, and we can begin taking more appropriate action in life when we learn how to listen to our innate intelligence, our intuition. Whether we are aware of it or not, the higher self is constantly sending us valuable messages that can guide us to where we need to go for our highest good. Our task is to learn how to tune into these messages. In Western society, we are taught to think logically, not intuitively. But when we add intuitive thinking to logical thinking, we expand enormously our inherent capability of living life in an incredibly powerful manner. We realize that we have available to us much more wisdom and guidance than we thought we had. The logical mind draws on the teachings of the physical plane. The intuitive mind draws on the teachings of the spiritual plane. When the two are combined, our resources for guiding us into the future are unlimited. We certainly are much more powerful than we thought we were. Since we have not been trained to use the intuitive part of who we are, the question is, how do we tune in to these powerful messages that are coming through to us? A Course in Miracles suggested to me a good beginning. Every morning, as you contemplate your day, ask your higher self 3 questions. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? Ask these questions with a sense of trust that your inner wisdom and power will come forth. Then consciously turn it over and go about your day. As your day progresses, listen to any inner messages that you are given. These are messages from the intuitive mind. Then start going where your energy wants to take you. Sometimes you just the urge to call a friend or a business contact or whatever. That urge is your intuition speaking. Again, see where these urges are taking you. In the beginning, you may hear nothing, but eventually you will pick up on the guidance coming through. Some of it may make no sense to you consciously, but it will make sense to your higher self. Trust that. These are messages from the intuitive mind, your intuition speaking. I have found that when I listen to my intuition, I am led to places that I would have never gone had I listened only to the logic of my rational mind, and the results have been magical. My introduction to teaching, and ultimately writing, came about as a result of my listening to my intuition. At the time, I had a vague notion that I wanted to teach a course on fear, but I put it off indefinitely. One day, as I sat at my desk working away, a strong message came into my head. Go to the new school for social research. I couldn't figure out why this message came into my head. I had never attended the new school. I knew no one there. In fact, I didn't even know where it was. Out of curiosity, I decided to go. Once there, I looked at the bulletin board. It seemed that the Human Relations Department was the right place to go. No one was sitting in the reception area. I looked through the door on my right and saw a woman sitting by my desk. She called out, "Can I help you?" Without thinking about it, I surprised myself by blurting out, "I'm here to teach a course about overcoming fear." I didn't realize that I was talking to the head of the department, a wonderful woman named Ruth Van Doren. She looked at me with amazement in her eyes and finally exclaimed, "I can't believe it. I've been searching high and low for someone to teach a course about fear and haven't been able to find one. And today is my deadline. All catalog descriptions must be in today." She inquired about my credentials and was pleased with what I told her. She then told me she had to run to catch a bus and asked me quickly to write up a course description. I did. She handed the description to her secretary and ran out the door, thanking me profusely. Well, teaching that course was a turning point in my life. My experience was so positive and felt so right that I decided to leave my wonderful job of 10 years to become a teacher and a writer of self-help books. From this very powerful experience in my life, I came to understand that there is something within me that has a bigger plan for my life than I am capable of imagining. People ask me how to know if it is their intuition speaking when they are being guided, or when it is the lower self disguising itself as the higher self. Well, that's a good question. My answer is that in the beginning, we need to play with it a bit. Experiment with little things. If you get an internal message to call so-and-so and it makes no sense, call anyway. See what happens. Or go somewhere where you are being led to go. Or read a book that seems to jump out at you in the bookstore, and so on. One clue that it is a message from the higher self is that it has a purpose for good. When we know that the action we are being led to take is a positive one, then we know we are probably on the wavelength of the higher self. Another exercise that has been very helpful to me comes from Ram Dass, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. When I know I will be faced with having to make a decision, instead of lamenting, "What should I do?" the more peaceful approach is simply to say, "I wonder what Susan is going to do." When I say, "I wonder what Susan is going to do," in a sense, I become the observer rather than the decision maker. I distance myself from the drama. I trust that Susan will be led by the wisdom within her, and I put the issue out of my mind. Later, I find myself living into the answer, easily and effortlessly. Now that you have some of the basics of unsetting your heart, the next sections of this program will help you to integrate this important concept into many areas of your life. Remember, as soon as you leave the lower self behind and surrender to the events surrounding your life, you are free to enter the higher self, where the fear, upset, and disappointment disappear, and new opportunities for a beautiful life are constantly placed before you. I am often amazed how our addiction to control affects even the smallest events in our lives. I have watched many people, including myself, ruin a love dinner out because the table wasn't right, or the service was slow, or the lighting was wrong, or the waiter wasn't polite enough. I'm sure you would agree these are very unimportant incidents in the grand scheme of life. Yet they seem to put people in a very bad temper and take away all their peace, and the peace of everyone around them. Yes, our addiction to control affects even the smallest and pettiest events in our lives. Alan Cohn, author of Joy is My Compass, tells us a wonderful story about his great moment of awakening when it came to letting go of trivial things in his life. His moment didn't come upon him at the top of a great mountain. No, his moment of awakening came to him at McDonald's. He reports that from the minute he walked into McDonald's for a quick lunch, he was miserable. He remembered someone telling him there was sugar in the French fries. He imagined the presence of preservatives in the apple pie. He lamented the preponderance of noisy kids stifling the whole environment. Nothing was right. He vowed he would never return. But then, as he sat there in what he called the smog of my own thoughts, the voice from his higher self came through loud and clear. It asked him a profound question that made all the difference. What if this were all right? He gasped, "What do you mean, all right? This is terrible." His higher self answered, "What if nothing around you holds any power to make you unhappy?" What a breakthrough! All of a sudden, Alan saw everything with new eyes. He looked at the boisterous kids and decided their laughter and shouts reflected their joy. He decided a little sugar and preservatives wasn't going to affect his ability to love. He decided that everything that was previously annoying him was totally all right. He said, "I had found the answer to all of life. Just let it be." What a freedom, wearing the world just as a loose garment, instead of struggling to make it all different than it is. Let go, let peace, let joy. This is such a wonderful example of how different our experience of life can be when listened to the higher self instead of the lower self. After I read Alan Cohn's story, I thought about all the little things in my life that I was constantly obsessing about. Yes, getting the right table in the restaurant, the weather, the stock market, the traffic, points of view that were different from mine, other people's behavior, getting everywhere on time, and so on. What a struggle. What if any table I got was okay? What if the weather was perfect, exactly as it was? What if my money in the stock market was irrelevant to my sense of security? What if the delayed traffic were just part of the scene? What if other people's opinion had nothing to do with my happiness or their behavior? What if life would go on joyfully even if I arrived at an appointment a little bit late? What if everything was okay? What a freedom. Then I would be wearing the world just as a loose garment, instead of struggling to make it all different than it is. As I said earlier, so much of our struggle with life has to do primarily with minor things in life. The big things often pull forward an incredible sense of power and inner knowing. As I already mentioned, I had cancer many years ago, and I handled it beautifully. I made it a triumph instead of tragedy. By way of contrast, I got a very bad hair perm 3 weeks before my present marriage. Did I make that a triumph? No way. You would have thought my world was coming to an end. Even after the wedding, I was upset months until the frizzy hair finally grew out. Does this make any sense on a spiritual level? Absolutely not. My higher self could care less about my hair. It's hard to believe my lower self cared so much, but it did. Had I known what I know today, I would have been in a much better position to say to myself, let go, let peace, let joy. So think about the many little things that cause upset in your life. Getting a dent in your car, forgetting to buy something at the supermarket, sitting in the airport for 2 hours because the plane was delayed, rain when you had invited people over for a picnic. It's at these times that we really need to take a step back and ask ourselves that profound question. What if this were all right? As an exercise, write down all the situations in your life that are causing you struggle and ask yourself about each situation. What if this were all right? Each time you ask this question, take a deep breath and relax. You will experience a momentary feeling of peace. Do this over and over again until just the asking of the question is associated with a deep breath and a feeling of relaxation. I think all of us should paste stickers everywhere we can see them that say, what if this were all right? It would help to remind us to pull ourselves out of the mire of our lower self and lift us to the freedom of our higher self. Another effective way to pull ourselves out of the prison of our lower self is simply to change our focus. Why do we always look at what's missing instead of what's there? For example, what if instead of focusing on the lousy table at the restaurant, we focused on the wonderful company, the luxury of having someone else cook our meal, and the abundance of having enough money to pay for the meal? The table might still be lousy, but 99% of the evening is wonderful. Why focus on 1%? We can create this shift in focus in all areas of our life that bring us upset. The truth is that blessings surround us all the time. That shift in focus isn't a delusion. In fact, we are deluding ourselves when we focus on the bad. Let me repeat that. We are deluding ourselves when we focus on the bad. So when that lousy table comes up and there are no others available, you say to yourself, yes, the table may be lousy, but look at all that is wonderful in this situation. How blessed I am. Indeed, when life is seen in this way, we are a step farther in conquering our control addictions, and there is very little that can take away our peace. Letting go sounds reasonable when we are talking about a table in a restaurant, but does the question, what if this were all right, work in terms of the loss of loved ones, bankruptcy, the loss of our home, and all the other crisis situations that can befall any of us at any time? You know my answer to that. Yes, we have two choices. Either we make it all right, or we make ourselves helpless victims. The former is definitely the preferable choice to make. In order to truly end the struggle and dance with life, it is essential that we learn to let go of the victim mentality. Victims can't enjoy life. They are too busy feeling sorry for themselves, feeling powerless, being a martyr, worrying, complaining, seeing the dark side of life, appreciating nothing, and blaming everyone. Not a happy picture. No evidence of the higher self here. And yet, we need only look around and notice the growing epidemic of victimization in our society. We have to ask ourselves, why are we competing to see who could be the most pathetic? We do it because we haven't yet found our way to the higher self. As a result, we find ourselves drowning in the toxicity of the lower self. where we feel frightened and ill-equipped, where we cop out of the responsibility for taking charge of our lives. To pull ourselves out of this mess, it is necessary for us to use one of my favorite tools for pulling away from the victim mentality. Pick the mirror instead of the magnifying glass. We do this not to blame ourselves. Any kind of blame is self-defeating, but to make ourselves strong. By picking up the mirror, we learn that we can't blame anyone for walking all over us. We can only notice when we are not getting out of the way. We learn that we, not our society, our parents, or anything or anyone out there, are the creators of our own experiences of life. We learn that we are responsible for our reactions to whatever life hands us. Once we understand this important reality, our journey to the best of who we are, our higher self, can begin. As we make that journey, our heart begins to open, the struggle vanishes, and the dance of life and love begins. Another one of my favorite tools for pulling out of the victim mentality is say yes to the universe. Saying yes to the universe means letting go of resistance and letting in the possibility inherent in any of life's situations. Saying yes is definitely a tool of our higher self. Conversely, saying no is definitely a tool of our lower self. In the way I am using it, saying no means being a victim. It means resisting opportunities for growth. Saying no creates tension, exhaustion, and struggle. Saying yes reduces upset and anxiety and lets you become the creator of enriching new life experiences. Saying yes doesn't mean giving up. It means getting up and acting on your belief that you can create meaning and purpose in whatever life hands you. It means moving into the realm of action. Here you are able to find the blessing, find the lesson to be learned, find the strength you never thought you had, find the triumph. Saying yes is a very powerful tool indeed. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it was then that I learned the profound wisdom in saying yes to the universe. I am eternally grateful that I was able to tap into the wisdom within that helped me find the blessing, find the lessons to be learned, find the strength I never thought I had, and ultimately to find the triumph. Because of all the lessons I learned, I can actually say that breast cancer was one of the most empowering experiences of my life. What could I possibly have learned, you may be asking yourself? Well, I learned that sexuality has nothing to do with the breast. Do you hear that, women? I learned that illness often comes from negative emotions, so I made a concerted effort to deal with all the old anger and pain I was holding. That made a tremendous difference in my entire life. I learned that a crisis can deepen love, and I married the beautiful man who was at my side. I learned that we can't take life for granted, so we better enjoy it while we have it. I learned all this and much, much more. Although I received so many blessings from my experience of cancer, I wouldn't consciously choose cancer as my favorite way of learning. I'd probably choose a vacation in Italy instead, but cancer is what life handed me, and thankfully I let my higher self, instead of my lower self, be my guide. I chose to say yes and opened to all the possibilities instead of saying no and seeing myself as a helpless victim. Many of us are victims out of habit. Often we don't even realize what we are doing when we are doing it. I was at a cocktail party recently when someone introduced herself to me as follows: "I'm Laura, an adult child of an alcoholic." I was a bit taken aback. I thought to myself, how limiting. Then I thought of all the other labels that people seem to identify with lately. I am an incest survivor. I am a breast cancer survivor. I am a victim of rape. While this kind of labeling may be an appropriate introduction in the context of a self-help or therapist-led group, it is very inappropriate as a label for living. There is danger in defining ourselves by victim labels instead of by the incredible strength we were given to deal with our circumstances, no matter how ghastly they were. Yes, it is important to deal with the psychological implications of disadvantaged childhood and the like, but health does not come from perpetuating sickness. In a larger context, we are constantly bombarded with messages from those who are intent on telling us that we are oppressed in some way, physically, emotionally, financially, gender-wise, and so on. What this suggests is that we haven't the strength, intelligence, or ability to handle our own lives. It means they see us as helpless, hopeless, and weak. It means they see us as incapable of picking ourselves up, standing tall, and living a life filled with confidence and purpose. How insulting! The truth is, we are not helpless, hopeless, weak, and incapable. The truth is that we are not powerless. The truth is that all things in our life can be used to empower us, no matter how difficult they are at the time. To me, life is about bringing forth the best of who we are. When we play the role of victim and habitually blame others, we are not bringing forth the best of who we are. We are making ourselves powerless. Instead of blaming, we need to learn how to take charge of our lives, honor who we are, and create powerful and beautiful lives for ourselves. We can't do this with anger and blame. We can do it only by drawing on the immense amount of strength that lies within our being. If there is a hell on earth, living as a victim with feelings of anger and blame defines it. If there is a heaven on earth, living powerfully and lovingly as the creator of our own experiences of life defines it. Make no mistake, any time we blame anyone or anything for what is happening in our lives, we are giving away all our power. So think of all that could go wrong with your life in a major way and decide that it's all right. Decide that you have the power to say yes to it all. Your saying yes guarantees that you will find the limitless source of inner strength that lies within us all. There is no greater comfort than that. When we achieve that state of comfort, we can let go of our need to control even the big things in our lives. We truly understand the wisdom in the popular saying, "Don't sweat the small stuff," and it's all small stuff. Our newspapers and television news shows present us with a daily litany of violence, incurable diseases, natural disasters, and an untold number of tragedies that could befall any one of us at any age, at any time of day. Can we train ourselves to let go and dance with life in such an environment of seemingly heightened danger? Again, the answer is yes. Gertrude Stein once said, "Considering how dangerous everything is, nothing is really very frightening." How true. There is no point in trying to escape danger. Danger is and has always been a fact of life. There never has been a safe time in history, nor a safe place. Part of the package of being human is that we live in a dangerous world. So how can we be in this world and not drive ourselves crazy with fear? First, we learn how to surrender. We once again let go of our attachment to the world being any different than it is. And again we ask ourselves the question, what if this were all right? We learn that it has to be all right because it's doubtful that it's ever going to be any other way. With this, we lighten up. We laugh at our predicament. We have a good time in spite of the danger. If something happens, so be it. I find this technique of surrender so powerful in many situations in life. For example, when I am flying in a plane. When the occasional turbulence hits, My automatic reflex is a quickening of the heart and a tightening of my muscles, the body's response to fear. Whenever this occurs, I simply say, "Okay, universe, take over, please." This doesn't mean, "Okay, universe, don't let anything happen to the plane, get me safely to my destination." It means, "Okay, universe, take over, please. Whatever happens, so be it. I trust the grand design. I trust it is all happening as it is supposed to happen." I can't tell you what a relief this kind of thinking brings me. After I ask the universe to take over, my muscles relax and my heart slows down. I have long ago stopped driving myself crazy by trying to hold up the plane. Exhausting. If the plane goes down, it goes down. Nothing I can do about it. And with this kind of thinking, I am then free to end the struggle and enjoy the ride. Californians, especially those who live in Los Angeles, set a good example. They're a hardy breed indeed. They are plagued not only by earthquakes, but also riots and fires. As I drove down Sunset Boulevard one day, I saw a wonderful billboard with the following words of noted accessories designer Kenneth Cole: "Earthquakes, riots, and fires, oh my." It's as though Cole were an observer commenting on the events of the day with little attachment to things being any other way. I know an awful lot of Los Angelinos who have this kind of humorous attitude and are not put off by the happenings of their city. To them, it's still the greatest place in the world to be. All the dangers in the city are just part of the passing scene. They all protect themselves as much as they can, but in the end, they know they have very little control of how the earth is moving, or how the fires are spreading, or how racial relationships are playing themselves out. The only control they have is their reaction to whatever is happening around them. And for the most part, they handle their reactions marvelously well. They know that moving to a supposedly safer place is no guarantee of safety. They believe that if you love living in a place, enjoy every moment you are there, and stop worrying about all the things that can befall you. Michael Ventura wrote a wonderful and insightful article about Californians titled "The Earthquake People," in which he suggests that we are all earthquake people. We all live with the clear and present danger of some sort, and we all have to surrender, to let go of our expectation of safety. When we know that time is limited on this earth, we can learn much more easily to live for today, not in a self-destructive way, but in a way that can lead to a richness of body, mind, and spirit. This concept is very freeing to me. I have stopped taking things so seriously. I have learned to let go of many things that were once very important to me, and I have certainly begun living more and more in the now. Cowering in fear robs us of life. The antidote to our fear is simply to say, "Okay, universe, take over, please. Take me where you wish, and I'll enjoy the ride." This is taking refuge in the land of the higher self and leaving the realm of the lower self behind. This is having the trust that no matter what is happening in our lives, it's all happening perfectly. So take the advice of my favorite role model, Auntie Mame, who once said, "Live, live, live." Some years ago, I wrote these words: "Life is beautiful. I have it all. But even in the sunshine, one has to cry sometimes." With that thought in mind, I want to introduce you to a secret, unexplored place deep within your being. It is a place that exists within us all, and in order to heal the hurts that lie deep within us, we need to enter it fully. When we emerge, we are surprised to learn that we are much freer to embrace all that is beautiful in this world. I came upon this secret place quite unexpectedly many years ago in New York City as I was riding in a bus. Traffic was very heavy, and as I sat looking out the window, I noticed a group of school children walking in twos, heading for the park. Each child carried a lunch bag filled with little treasures that some caring person had placed there earlier that morning. My reverie was suddenly shattered when one little boy's lunch bag burst open, spilling all his treasures on the ground. As I watched his anguished gaze fixated on the ruined contents of his bag, I had to turn away. Somewhere deep within me, it hurt too much, and the tears started rolling down my cheeks. I was surprised at the well of emotion this little incident had released in me. My reaction seemed totally inappropriate to the scene that had occurred. What was going on within me? This was not the first time that some situation outside myself had touched that place within that I have come to call the land of tears. I knew that the deep sadness that I felt had nothing to do with what was happening in my life at the time. In fact, my life was rich with meaningful work and the love of my family and caring friends. No, the sadness was not about my personal story, but something much broader, much more significant than that. Another perplexing part of the puzzle was that not only did sad things touch the land of tears, happy things did as well. Just watching a family reunited at the airport left me sobbing. What was that all about? Through much soul-searching, I eventually found the answers to my questions. I came to realize that my tears reflected something I had tried very hard to deny: the universal hardship that we all experience by virtue of the fact that we are human beings. Life is tough. It hurts a lot. By definition, being truly alive implies a lot of pain. Who has not at times felt rejected, unloved, helpless, lonely, not quite good enough? Who has not cried at the unfairness of so many happenings in their lives? Who has not inwardly prayed that things like death and cancer and nuclear war won't happen to them and theirs? Who has not had to come to terms with the fact that there are times we have to say goodbye to those we love most? Life is about facing all this and so much more. But why the tears in the face of great joy? This was not difficult to figure out. Isn't it all part of the same thing? Isn't joy about reaching the other side of struggle? Didn't that family reunited at the airport first have to go through the pain of separation, time of loneliness, and the fear of loss before the joy of reunion? Their tears and hugs suggested they did. Whether it's the sorrow of goodbye or the joy of hello, it's all part of the same package. It all signifies the human condition. The last and most important part of the puzzle was, why did I have to run away? This was the tough one. I finally realized it was because I couldn't look life squarely in the face. For years, I tried very hard to avoid the land of tears. I needed to believe that life should always be happy. To perpetuate this delusion, I became a pseudo-positive thinker, one who was in constant denial about the pain of living. I was avoiding an essential element in the art of genuine positive thinking. I was avoiding the land of tears. I became such a pseudo-positive thinker that I became detached, disconnected from my own pain, and disconnected from other people's pain as well. In fact, I dismissed their despair as weakness. They were touching feelings I was desperately trying to disinherit. Hence, I couldn't feel connection and empathy, only disdain. One day, the dike cracked open, and I could no longer hold back the flood. I realized that all the hunger, war, greed, illness, unfairness, pain, and horror in the world were real. It was not a figment of anyone's imagination or a result of negative thinking. The despair poured all over me and through me. What a blow to a well-defended personality. It took a while to absorb the shock of my despair and restructure my life in a more genuine and life-affirming way, but it was well worth the effort. Having made the land of tears an integral part of my life so many years ago has had enormous benefits. In the first place, I've joined the human race. When I watch the struggle of others, I can now connect with my own struggle, and we are no longer strangers. I don't have to turn away. I can embrace them and their pain and let them know they are not alone. I'm a lot kinder and more patient, and that makes me feel good. I've learned to judge others a lot less harshly, remembering that deep within them exists their own land of tears, no matter how they may appear on the outside. What they do and say is just their way of handling hurt. I actually feel younger than I did way back then. I have much more energy. I feel lighter, freer, more able to dance with life. What a merciful relief not to have to hold back that raging river of emotion any longer. Now, when the deep sadness comes over me, I can let it be there like a warm blanket. I don't have to push it away. It feels so good. Just let the tears flow freely. When I let the tears wash over me, I feel cleansed and healed. And when the river of tears is empty, I am freer to enjoy the delights the world has to offer without a layer of sadness dampening my joy. Paradoxically, my letting in the pain of being human has allowed me to embrace the joy of being human. The exquisite moments expand and expand. The moments I am infused with energy and aliveness. The moments I feel connected as part of the human family. The moments I let go of the struggle and feel myself dancing with life. All the pain in the world cannot deny the existence of these exquisite moments. When I presented all of this in one of my workshops, a student raised an interesting point. She said, "I am a heavy-duty crier, yet all the crying in the world doesn't give me the peace you're talking about. In fact, it makes me feel rotten. What's the difference?" I realized then that I had forgotten an important piece of my explanation. As I discussed earlier, when situations in our life are painful, we have a choice of saying yes to the pain or no. The tears that come from either choice are very different indeed. The tears of yes come from the understanding that pain is just part of the richness of life. The tears of yes come from the understanding that no matter how difficult life gets, you can handle anything that comes your way and emerge from it stronger and wiser. The tears of yes reflect the bittersweetness that lies in many of our sorrowful experiences. The tears of yes come from the acknowledgement of the human condition and the understanding that we are all in it together. You can see that the tears of yes come from the higher self, the best of who we are. They are cleansing, part of the healthy human process of letting go of pain. The tears of yes allow us to be the creator of our life, not a victim of circumstances. The tears of yes make us feel connected and allow us to move forward in a way that helps to heal our own life and the world around us. In contrast, the tears of no come from a victim mentality, from those who feel they will never recover from the rough deal life has handed them. The tears of no come from our question, how could this happen to me? And from the accompanying feelings of hopelessness, powerlessness, and apathy. The tears of no come from our blindness to the possible gifts inherent in any painful experience. The tears of no come from our inability to understand the ebb and flow of life. Instead, we are angered and frightened. The tears of no come from the lower self. As a result, they serve only to weigh us down. They never resolve the hurt and the fear. Hence, if you cry a lot, yet find that all the tears in the world aren't making you feel any better relative to some situation in your life, understand that it is because you are crying the tears of no. In some way, you are feeling helpless and or a victim of circumstances. You know it is time to find the tools to pull yourself out of the lower self and elevate yourself to the broader vision of the higher self, where you feel powerful, alive, compassionate, loving, safe, and connected to all living things. If you never or rarely cry, understand that the release of healthy tears, the tears of yes, is important to one's sense of well-being. Even though our society teaches us that, for many reasons, crying is a big no-no, our society is wrong. Certainly hiding our pain from ourselves is not a way of loving ourselves. And because it doesn't allow us to have compassion for others, it's not a way of loving others either. The need to hide our pain makes us recoil from the pain of others. For example, when we find it impossible to telephone others when something terrible happens in their lives. Our excuse is, we don't know what to say, when a simple, "my thoughts are with you," would mean so much. Now we know the truth. The truth is we are afraid that if we let their pain into our hearts, our own pain will be unleashed as well. When we allow our own tears of yes to flow freely, we automatically come forward to offer comfort to those who are experiencing sorrowful times. So understand that if tears do not come easily, it's not that the tears aren't there. It's because they are being repressed in some way, either because we were taught that crying is bad, and or because we don't want to face the depth of our own pain. Some of the signs of unshed tears are anger, depression, apathy, indifference, fatigue, boredom, avoidance of unhappy reality in life, pseudo-positive thinking, guilt, shame, an excessive need to be busy, negativity, fear, substance abuse, and underlying sadness when things seem to be going well. All of the above is a form of psychological numbing. Psychological numbing creates apathy. It's not that we don't care, it's that we can't face the pain of caring. When we turn away from the homeless, or the aged, or the handicapped, for example, we are turning away from our own pain, our own fear. We all do this to some extent, but we have to understand that there is room in our lives for both the pain and the joy. In fact, without acknowledging the pain, there can be no joy. I'm sure if you look into your own life and the lives of others around you, you will find many other escape routes. But paradoxically, you are escaping nothing. The damage to our lives, when we don't allow ourselves to be whole and authentic, is evident everywhere we turn, in our relationships, our careers, our health. It seems as though the more we try to avoid suffering, the more we suffer. When we enter the land of tears and unlock the river of emotion that lies within, we experience a catharsis, a cleansing purification and release. It is easy to understand why we have so much energy after a good, healthy cry. Chunliang Al Wang tells of a wonderful Chinese ritual that takes place at funerals. Professional criers are hired to help mourners fully express their grief. They yell, scream regrets and other emotions, and encourage everyone to join in. By the time the ceremony is over, the well of tears is dry, and everyone feels freer and at peace. We have to understand that life is the coexistence of all opposites, including joy and sorrow. These opposites are meant to flow together, the one embracing the other. We don't have to resist these opposites. Just as we can flow in the peace of happy experiences, we can flow in the pain of unhappy experiences. It is the resistance that makes life seem unbearable. If we allow ourselves to go with the feelings our body, mind, and soul are aching to feel, then we are in harmony once again, dancing with life. Now that you understand the importance of entering the land of tears, let me give you some exercises that will induce healing tears when none seem to come. 1. Very often, when reading a novel or an article in the newspaper, or hearing a story on television or watching a movie, we are moved to tears, either tears of sadness or tears of joy. We then quickly wipe the tears away and go on with our lives. The next time this happens, let yourself be with the tears of sadness or joy, and ask yourself what was touched inside of you that created this strong well of emotion. 2. Use situations in your life that automatically bring up sadness to jump into the land of tears. When my stepchildren left this summer to go back to college, my husband Mark said he didn't know what to do with the tears that were lying right beneath the surface. He decided that the best thing to do was to get very busy with his work so he didn't have to think about missing his children. I suggested that he instead focus on his sadness and let his tears come up. I also suggested that he write them each a letter, expressing his deep feeling of love for them and thanking them for all the joy they bring to his life, the kind of letter few children ever receive from their fathers. He did, and when he emerged from his office, told me of the deep feeling of release he felt, where before there had been only heaviness. 3. One of the most effective ways of learning how to enter the land of tears is to join a group. A healthy group, one that does not allow us to feed the victim mentality, reveals to us that we are not alone in our feelings of pain, and as others release their own pain, it makes it much easier for us to release our own as well. 4. Another wonderful tool to help us enter the land of tears is music. Music is evocative of moments of happiness and sadness in our lives. Think of various pieces of music that pull your heartstrings and use them to induce tears. Once again, ask what those tears are all about and what you can learn about yourself as a result of your reaction to certain pieces of music. 5. Take the time to volunteer a couple of hours a week at a home for the aged, or a hospice, or a home for the handicapped. Pick the place you least want to go. It is a sign that it represents something you are having a hard time looking at. A friend of mine was terrified at the prospect of dying. To help him push through his fear, he began working with people who are terminally ill. He learned that many of the people he worked with experience, through the process of dying, a closing, a healing, a beauty and peace in their lives that they never felt before. As a result, my friend no longer fears death. So walk toward the pain, don't run away. Remember, you will always find beauty in the land of tears. 6. If you find you're not able to pull up painful feelings on your own, and you know they are creating a deadening effect on your experience of this world, by all means seek professional help. You want a therapist who encourages you to express your feelings, no matter how irrational they may seem. Not one who tells you that your life is good and you have nothing to feel sad about, as one therapist once told me. These are just a few ways we can begin to heal the pain and sadness in our lives. As I stated earlier, I've often been asked, why is there so much suffering in this world? If this question weighs heavily on your mind, I suggest you stop driving yourself crazy by expecting an answer that we ordinary mortals can't provide. Instead, tell yourself, I can't see the grand design, the divine plan for this universe. Therefore, I no longer will ask why. Instead, I will learn to be more trusting. And it is up to me to find a way to be more peaceful and compassionate in the midst of the suffering. One way we all can find that peace and compassion in the midst of the suffering is to enter the land of tears with a big yes in our hearts. When we do this, we are amazed to discover a treasure trove of other riches as well. We learn, we grow, we feel, we care, we share, we love, we heal, we hear, we caress, we touch, we reach out, we embrace, we unite, we acknowledge, we act, we experience, we open our hearts, we lighten, we understand, we commit, we expand our vision, we become involved, We become wiser. We become freer. We become joyful, like the laughing Buddha. The land of tears, how sweet it is. I've talked about many ways we can release the weights that keep us mired in struggle. For the rest of this program, I want to talk about the many ways we can embrace the blessings that make us soar, that make us rise above the clouds. In the Talmud, it is written, "In the world to come, each of us will be called to account for all the good things God put on this earth, which we refused to enjoy." When I read that for the first time, I gasped. First, I felt ashamed because I knew that over the course of my lifetime, I had been given so much and had appreciated so little. Then I felt elated. At last, I had been given permission to enjoy. More than permission. I was being told that if I didn't enjoy, there would be consequences. What a gift. Then I consciously began to look around and notice all the good things God put on earth that I refused to enjoy. In the past, I had only glanced at things I should have embraced. Like most of us, I had an immense capacity for taking things for granted. Since then, I have learned that taking things for granted is one of the greatest assaults on the quality of our lives. When we take things for granted, we never get to see the magnitude of the gifts that are constantly being placed before us. As a result, we feel only scarcity instead of abundance. It's at this point you may be asking, "What are you talking about, Susan? Just look around. The world is a mess." Yes, the world is a mess. Your life might be a mess. And despite that fact, there is so much to be grateful for that it staggers the imagination. The riches of the world envelop us, yet we cannot see. Let's begin exploring some concepts and tools that will help you stop the habit of focusing on what is terrible and begin focusing on what is wonderful. You will see that focusing on what is wonderful can be achieved in many different and delightful ways. As you listen, remember, in order to break any habit, repetition of the preferred behavior is a must. A Chinese Zen master once said, "Magical power, marvelous action, chopping wood, carrying water." The Zen master who gave us that saying over 1,000 years ago was very wise indeed. But, as you can see from the following passage, he was no wiser than Winnie the Pooh, one of my favorite storybook characters. "When you wake up in the morning, Pooh," said Piglet at last, "what's the first thing you say to yourself?" "What's for breakfast?" said Pooh. "What do you say, Piglet?" "I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today," said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. "It's the same thing," he said. What Winnie the Pooh and our Zen master both tell us is that we can embrace the gifts of magic and excitement in the most ordinary of events: chopping wood, carrying water, eating breakfast, balancing our checkbook, getting our car washed, driving to work, caring for a loved one, working, brushing our teeth, and so on. The trick is to learn how to live in the moment, paying attention to the wonder of it all. For us in Western society, this idea of living in the moment is very foreign, since most of us are caught in the trap of preparing to live instead of living now. When I go to college, then. When I graduate, then. When I get married, then. When I have kids, then. When the kids go off on their own, then. When I go on vacation, then. When I get a new job, then. When I get a divorce, then. When I make enough money, then. When I retire, then. When, then, seems to govern our lives. I was struck by the message Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi gave to an audience of elderly people. Told them that aging was their time for harvesting, for reaping the rewards. He said, "We have already plowed, sown seed, but we haven't yet harvested." Although I certainly applaud his message that aging is a time of harvesting instead of a time of deterioration, I believe that we don't have to wait until we are old to gather the riches. We can gather them every day of our lives. It's a pity to waste so much of our life waiting. Our faulty conditioning has led us to believe that the enjoyment is supposed to come only after all the work has been done, which seems to be never. It makes sense to end this wasteful habit of preparing to live and to begin living now. Also, harvesting is a learned skill. This means that if we don't learn how to do it when we are young, how will we know how to do it when we are old? So let me show you two of the basic principles of harvesting, of adopting the attitude of Winnie the Pooh and our Chinese Zen master, who reaped the beauty and excitement of life in even the most ordinary of everyday events. The first is to look mindfully at everything you do. What does that mean? Well, I was introduced to the practice of mindfulness many years ago at Esalen Institute, where I was attending a week-long workshop focused on the joys of everyday living. One of our assignments was to help cook dinner for the 150 participants there that week. Well, my first thought was, I didn't come all this way to dinner for 150 people. I hate to cook. Thankfully, I went along with the program and was introduced to the concept of mindfulness for the first time. The kitchen was run by a very spiritual man who approached his task of cooking with a great deal of attention to the moment and to the wonder of all things. Before we even began to cook, he told us to close our eyes and meditate for a few moments on the great privilege with which we were now being honored, to be able to provide nourishment and enjoyment to other people. This in itself put a whole new focus on our task. It was no longer a chore, but an honor. Next, we were instructed to notice and embrace the blessings that the kitchen provided, such as the sunlight that streamed in through the windows, the beautiful music that was playing, and the appliances that made our task easier. After a few moments of really paying attention to these many blessings, we were all assigned a specific job and told to see ourselves as an important part of the whole, would make a difference to everyone around us and to those we would ultimately serve. We were to cook in silence, and as we cut the bread, or steamed the rice, or sautéed the vegetables, or mixed the ingredients for dessert, we were to be aware of the texture of the food, the colors, and the smells, and the ultimate source of it all. As we worked in quiet unison, our instructor periodically reminded us to focus on the beauty of the moment. I was amazed to notice that by focusing my attention on the beauty of the now, each moment became exquisite. I was filled with a sense of gratitude. I was able to transform a task I hated into one that was nothing short of sublime. I discovered that by focusing on the beauty of the moment, I was able to harvest while I was plowing and planting the seeds. The beauty of the process of cooking and serving the meal became my reward. I didn't have to wait until later to enjoy. I remember with intense clarity the cooking of this very special meal, even though it happened more than 20 years ago. For me, the experience was mind-altering. Now, I know you may be thinking to yourself, it's one thing to cook in such a special environment, but what about those who run home from work and breathlessly try to prepare something that's edible for a family that's less than appreciative on a budget that's less than abundant? Surely that's another matter. But is it? The ritual of purpose, gratitude, focus, and fulfillment that I experienced at Esalen took no more time or money than a meal prepared with frenzy, frustration, resentment, and/or anger. And the process of cooking it was so enjoyable that it didn't much matter to us what reception the food got. We knew we were cooking with a sense of caring and love. It is this sense of caring and love that brings the joy. An appreciative audience is simply the icing on the cake, so to speak. It's the essence. Another benefit of this kind of mindfulness is that for that brief moment in time, we are not focused on the problems we had all day. We are not focused on the fears of tomorrow. We are brought into the present moment. It is living in the now, and you may be surprised to learn that now is the only time we have. At first glance, it seems silly putting full attention on a task such as cooking, but that's precisely the point. When we are mindful, a task such as cooking and all our everyday chores become part of the harvest, part of the exquisiteness of life, instead of the boredom of life. I don't think that's silly. I think it is the height of wisdom. On the contrary, when we are living a when-then kind of life, so many of the common chores of everyday life seem like drudgery as we wait for our 2-week vacation. What a waste of a life. I suggest that the next time you find yourself preparing a meal, or cleaning the house, or working at your job outside the home, or driving your car, or gardening, or taking care of an elderly relative, or performing any task, you focus on the possibility of that moment bringing you intense joy and satisfaction. Stop the chatter in your mind from telling you that this is a thankless obligation you must do in order to get on with your life. This is your life. I've given you just a brief introduction to the concept of mindfulness. I ask you to explore this remarkable path of fulfillment in much greater detail. Looking deeply is another basic principle of harvesting. Most of us only skim the surface when we look at what life gives to us. This is why we habitually take things for granted and miss the miracle of it all. For example, there was a time in my life when I used to walk into a supermarket and be bored out of my mind. I'm sure many of you understand exactly what I am talking about. Marketing was a horrible chore I had to do before I could get to do something I wanted to do. By learning to look deeply, I was able to transform my moments of boredom in the supermarket into many exquisite moments. You might be wondering, how can one have exquisite moments at the supermarket? Let me show you how. As you walk through the door, just survey the rich array of goodies from which you can choose. Trust me when I tell you that there are few countries in the world that have such abundance. Then, as you fill your basket with a dozen eggs, a loaf of bread, salad fixings, and many other goodies, look more deeply and notice the huge variety you have to choose from. So many kinds of bread, so many kinds of greens, so many kinds of cereals, so many kinds of desserts. The richness of it all. As you focus on the abundance in your basket, look a little more deeply and focus on the money you have to pay for the purchases. Even if you can't buy everything you want, you can buy enough to sustain you. Given the number of overweight people in our society, most of us buy more than enough to sustain us. Next, look even more deeply as you focus on the farmers who grew the greens that gave you your salad fixings, and raised the chickens that gave you the eggs, and grew the grains that gave you the bread cereal. Focus on the bakers who baked the bread. Focus on the drivers of the trucks, captains of the ships, and pilots of the planes that transported all the riches to your doorstep. Then look even more deeply as you focus on the staff that is there to serve you. Some of them have been up since very early in the morning to set up the displays in a way to please you. Focus on the people who took a risk and invested their money to create a market to provide you with such sumptuous fare. Focus on the people who built the building that houses the market. Then look even more deeply and focus on those who created the roads that allowed you to drive your car to this place of wonder, and those who manufactured the car that gave you so much mobility. Then look as deeply as you possibly can and focus on the ultimate source of it all, God, the force, the universal light, whatever it is for you, that created the air, the sun, the water, the earth, that makes all growth possible. One can't deny the miraculous rhythm and flow to it all. We could be there all day and couldn't look deeply enough to encompass the miracle of it all. Now, when you look at the supermarket in this way, it is a monumentally large gift that we have been given. Now can you see how moments of boredom, even in the supermarket, can be turned into exquisite moments? Emily Dickinson once wrote, "As if I asked a common alms, and in my wandering hand a stranger pressed a kingdom, and I, bewildered, stand." We went to the market for a tomato, and when we looked deeply, a stranger pressed a kingdom in our hand. Magic. You can begin looking deeply at everything you do in your everyday life. Driving your car, working at your office, taking a vacation, reading a book, watching television, gardening, cleaning your house, caring for loved ones. As we look deeply, we see that in everything we do, we have been handed the kingdom. May we always remember this. Let me end this section with the impassioned plea of Chogyam Trungpa. Look, this is your world. You can't not look. There is no other world. This is your world. It is your feast. You inherited this. You inherited these eyeballs. You inherited this world of color. Look at the greatness of the whole thing. Look. Don't hesitate. Look. Open your eyes. Don't blink. And look, look, look further. Hear his plea. Don't miss out on another moment of greatness in your life. Despite what you're doing, your world is rich. Harvest the riches now. Brother David Steindl Rast once said, "In daily life, we must see that it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratefulness that makes us happy." It's amazing how many things we get backwards in our thinking. Even a person who has a difficult life and very little money will be happy if he or she has mastered the art of gratitude. I used to work with the poor in New York City. I was always amazed at the gratefulness in the hearts of so many who in a material sense had very little. What were they grateful for? They were grateful to be alive, to have food on their table, to enjoy the sun on a beautiful day, to have their health, their friends, their family, and to be a contributing force in their community. At the same time, I was often in the company of people who had a great deal of money, and I was always amazed at the lack of gratefulness in the hearts of so many. If you were to ask me which of the two were happier, without hesitation, I would say the poor with gratefulness in their hearts. Gratitude creates happiness, not money. I remember my mom just months before she died, sitting with me in her living room on a cold, dreary winter day. She was feeling very weak and in much pain from her tired bones. At one point, when I was in pain about her pain, she looked at me and said, "It's cold outside, but I'm warm and cozy inside, and my daughter is here. Sometimes you get lucky." Wow, I was focusing on her pain. She was focusing on her blessings. Thanks, Mom, for that beautiful lesson. What I am talking about here is very simple. When we focus on abundance, our life feels abundant. When we focus on lack, our life feels lacking. It is simply a matter of focus. As I pointed out earlier, we can't be in denial about the pain in our life. And just as importantly, we can't be in denial about the abundance in our life. We are a nation of people totally immersed in denial about the abundance in our lives. We have become a nation of victims, and it's hard for victims to be happy. Yes, we must acknowledge and deal with our pain, but we must also acknowledge and embrace our blessings. Without acknowledging the gifts in our lives, we will remain hurt, angry, and empty, convinced we are among the unlucky ones. How can we receive when we aren't even conscious that we are being given to? Although it is true that the teachings of our society tend to ignore the issue of gratitude, we all have the power to reverse the training, to teach ourselves how much there is to be grateful for in this world, despite any negative circumstances that surround us. In so doing, we learn the secret of harvesting, of reaping the bounty that lies all around us. When we harvest, we don't need to hang on so tightly to so many things: the past, the future, the shoulds, the way it's supposed to be, our expectations, and on and on and on. We can open our arms and let go, thus ending the struggle and dancing with life. It is important to understand that unless we harvest, unless we scoop in the rewards, we will always have the pain and fear of an unlived life. Remember, it's not that beauty doesn't exist in our world. It's that we seldom seem to notice. Daily rituals of gratitude help us appreciate the riches in our life. As the great poet Rumi said many years ago, there are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So let's focus on just a few very simple ways that we can kneel and kiss the ground as an act of awareness of everything that is wonderful about our lives. These are just suggestions. As you listen, let your creativity flow and invent your own rituals that have a deep meaning in your own life. Renew the age-old tradition of giving thanks at dinner time. Simply saying, "I am thankful for the food I am about to eat," gives us a little pause before gulping down our food mindlessly and without appreciation. Or you might try holding hands around the table with closed eyes for a few moments, just letting the blessings roll over you. Feel the grand energy of human connection. My husband and I often do this with friends and family. Find a gratitude buddy. As you get involved in the busyness of your daily life, it helps to have a friend who is your wake-up call. Commit to calling each other regularly to talk about the blessings in your lives. Does this sound stupid and far-fetched? Hardly. Look around and notice that many people call each other every day to talk about the misery in their lives. All it takes is a change in focus. Create a gratitude group. Most groups are formed to help us deal with the problems in our life, which is certainly one way to go. I wonder what would happen if we attended a group that focused only on the beauty in our lives. Would many of our problems disappear automatically? They might, considering that most of our problems are created by a victim mentality, or the sense that we aren't getting, doing, or being enough. Would we need therapy if we were constantly grateful? As David Reynolds reports, "I've never met a suffering neurotic person who is filled with gratitude." You can structure the format of your group any way you choose. Your gratitude group could be just a few people getting together each week, pointing out to one another how much there really is to celebrate. It could be a dinner meeting where everyone contributes something to the pot. Or it could be an after-dinner meeting where the primary focus is simply talking about the beauty in your lives. Wake up to happiness. When you awaken each morning, you can shut out the negative chatter of the mind by playing an affirmation tape that helps you focus on the highest part of who you are instead of the lowest part of who you are. As a start, may I suggest my audio program, Inner Talk for a Confident Day. Listen to this tape each morning for at least 6 weeks, or until the ideas become firmly rooted in your body and mind. Later, when you get the feel of higher self-thinking, you can create your own personal affirmation tape. Starting each day with thoughts of power and love is a guaranteed way of helping to break the lower self-habit of focusing on lack and create the higher self-habit of focusing on beauty and higher purpose. Collect quotations that make you feel good. Many times throughout the day, we read or hear thoughts that trigger a shift in our consciousness. We get so much from an inspirational, insightful, or humorous quote. Create a book of abundance. This is a truly wonderful tool for reminding us of our blessings. Put it by your bedside. Each night before you go to bed, jot down at least 50 wonderful things that happened to you that day. 50 things, Susan. I can hardly think of 3. Obviously, you have not been looking mindfully and deeply at the blessings in your life, and the purpose of this exercise is to help you do so. The items in your book of abundance do not have to be splashes of brilliance. In fact, it is better if they are not. Always keep in mind that if we focus only on the splashes of brilliance, we are left with a life of boredom interjected with a few exquisite moments. One of our goals is to make each moment exquisite. We do this by acknowledging the gifts inherent in all the so-called ordinary events in our life. As we look at them mindfully and deeply, we begin to realize that these ordinary moments aren't ordinary at all. They are extraordinary. Some of the items you can include are: my car started, I am able to walk, I have food to eat, someone paid me a compliment, my kids haven't gotten in any trouble today, I felt the sun's warmth on my face, I spoke to one of my best friends, the flowers are starting to bloom, I have hot water in my shower, I'm breathing, the sun came out. As we start looking for the good to put in our book of abundance, our focus automatically is taken off the bad. If we can make looking for the abundance a habit, just think how our lives will be transformed. Create a good night reminder. Each night before you go to sleep, create a word or two that embodies a sense of appreciation for all that has been given to you during the day. And as you close your eyes to go off to sleep, keep repeating the word or words you have selected for the evening. Very often, I fall asleep to the words, "Thank you." Next, count the many shoulders you are standing on. Write down each day one or more people who have contributed or who are contributing to your life. We will never run out of people to include. Not only can we list parents, siblings, children, and mates, but also the invisible people who work very hard to make our lives better. And if you think you are self-made, think again. Your parents clothed, fed, and took care of you. Your teachers educated you. Your boss hired you. Your customers supported your business efforts. Your suppliers helped you deliver the goods. Your phone and fax helped you set up the business. Your employees kept the business running. The truth is that when we look back on all our achievements, we see that we have done nothing on our own. Well, that should humble us a bit. In fact, the more appreciative we become, the more humble we become, which is a good thing. When we have this awareness, we feel part of a larger whole, a network caring, a network of people standing on each other's shoulders. How blessed we are. Cultivate the habit of saying thank you. When we look mindfully and deeply at the beauty in our lives and begin to list the multitude of people and things who have supported us, there can be only 2 words that come from our heart and to our lips, and these words are, thank you. The inclusion of the words thank you in our vocabulary sets up an interesting paradox. Each time we say these 2 powerful words, we are acknowledging a gift we were given. If we say thank you often enough, any trace of a poverty consciousness disappears, and we begin feeling incredibly abundant, not only for the people, but for the things that enrich our lives. Thank you, body, for keeping me alive. Thank you, coffee, for the delicious wake-up call. Thank you, vitamins and breakfast, for nourishing me. Thank you, house, for protecting me from the elements. You may think it's ridiculous to think of such ordinary things in our lives as blessings. But what if we didn't have them? In his poignant story about life in a concentration camp, Viktor Frankl tells us that it is just these kinds of ordinary things that he and the other men missed. As he wrote, "In my mind I took bus rides, unlocked the front door of my apartment, answered my telephone, switched on the electric lights." Our thoughts often centered on such details, and these memories could move one to tears. Unquote. Here are people who had everything taken away and were surrounded by unimaginable horrors, and their thoughts went to all the little things we so callously take for granted. Yes, saying thank you can be a very difficult thing to do. In a world encased in struggle and upset, it seems easier to say, "Help." But begin the practice now. At least 10 times a day, say thank you to someone in your life. You can't imagine how much these little words will contribute to your sense of gratitude and well-being, and the well-being of others. As your awareness of the riches available to you in your everyday life grows, you are on the way to becoming the laughing Buddha. Life is joyous. Life is light. Life is happy. You are awake at last. Years ago, I saw a tiny framed poster of an inviting forest of aspen trees. I was attracted to the caption, which said simply, "When you come upon a magic place, listen." At first, I thought the message was solely about going into nature, but as time went on, I realized that the deeper essence of the message was that in order to embrace fully the riches in our life, we need to go deep within our being, to our higher self and beyond, and listen to the important messages we hold inside. In order to do this, we must learn how to embrace the silence, how to quiet the endless chatter in the mind, the chatter of the lower self, so that we can hear. Yet, quieting the mind is easier said than done. Silence is a no-no in our society, so there are very few of us who have embraced the riches of a quiet mind. Because it's a rarity, most of us are uncomfortable with silence. The moment we enter our homes, the television goes on, or we pick up the phone. The minute we get into our cars, the radio or tape machine goes on. Despite our discomfort with silence, I believe that we all have a yearning to get to this peaceful place within our being. In his ultimate wisdom, Henry David Thoreau once said, "Many men go fishing all of their lives without knowing that it is not fish they are after. In the end, what they are after is a sense of quiet, appreciation, and peace that is missing in their lives." One very powerful way of reaching and ultimately embracing the silence of your mind is meditation. One of the most popular forms of meditation is transcendental meditation, or TM. TM has nothing to do with religion. It's not even a philosophy or a suggested lifestyle. TM is purely a mechanical technique for achieving a deep state of restful awareness. TM is very easy to do. All it requires is that we sit comfortably in a chair with our eyes closed, silently repeating to ourselves a meaningless word, mantra. This gently pulls our mind into a state of peaceful alertness and awareness. TM can be practiced anywhere, riding in a bus, in your office, sitting in bed. It's very portable. TM offers us a deeper state of rest than sleep. And many health professionals say that TM is good for just about everything that ails us. TM improves our mental abilities and our emotional state. How does meditation work? Well, let's use the analogy of water. When water is in high activity, it boils, it's volatile. If you reduce the activity, a sense of calm comes over the water. So too, when we reduce the activity in our mind, a sense of calm comes over our being. The intermittent silent repetition of our mantra, which is chosen because of its sound, is a very effective device to help stop the volatility of the mind. It also gives the mind something to hold on to and gently leads it to calmer spaces. Each time we dip down into the abundance of our inner being, we emerge a little richer. Over time, the whole quality of our life is improved in a magnificent way. You may want to look into other forms of meditation, such as Buddhist meditation or mindfulness meditation. TM is just one of many highly effective possibilities. Check out the different options. Your local bookstore will most likely have many books and audio tapes that will help you decide which is best for you. Another possibility, simply to sit in silence for 15 or 20 minutes a day. The renowned Louise Hay makes a practice of sitting quietly, closing her eyes, taking a deep breath, and asking, "What is it I need to know?" And then she listens. Judging from her many contributions to this world, she gets wonderful answers indeed. Some use chanting to get themselves into a meditative state. Others use guided visualizations, which have proven very valuable to me. Scan the bulletin boards of your local spiritually oriented bookstores to see if any classes are available that teach you how to get into a meditative state. The point is to find something that works for you. Whatever the method, the purpose is always the same, to step out of our own way and touch a universal oneness with all things. In the emptiness, all things fall into place. It is a strange paradox that in emptying the mind, we find exquisite fullness. This wonderful quote from Franz Kafka, written a long time ago, inspires us. You do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen. Simply wait. Do not even wait. Be quite still and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet." Unquote. As we turn off the sound and move into silence, the dancing can begin. We finally hear the music of our soul, and it is this that gives us peace. And as we listen to the music of our soul, we mysteriously and wondrously hear the music of everyone else's as well, and we are one with the world. What could give us as much peace as meditation? The answer is prayer. Actually, prayer is often characterized as a form of meditation. Prayer can be a wonderful way to transcend the petty and bring peace to a struggling mind. Perhaps you are someone who does not believe in God or a higher power. I suggest that you pray anyway. The healing effects of prayer, even for those who do not believe in God, have been documented in a number of scientific studies, and it is hard to deny the evidence. So pray to the Spirit or higher self within, or simply to the grand mystery of it all. But don't negate the potential power of prayer in your life. It can be an awesome force indeed. There are many ways that people pray, and while there is no right or wrong way to pray, I believe that some prayers can create confusion and distrust, while others can create an incredible sense of power and love. Needless to say, it's important to learn the difference. I suspect that some form of the following prayer sounds familiar to many single women today. Dear God, I am getting older. Please send me a wonderful man to marry so I can begin my family within 1 year. I'm sure that many single men have an equivalent prayer. Some of us pray that our loved ones get well when they are ill, or that we find a job when money is short, or that a certain business venture turns out successfully, that we win the lottery, and so on. Prayers that ask for something are often called petitionary prayers. Petitionary prayers do not do the job of ending our struggle, whether they have loving sentiments behind them or selfish ones. The simple reason for this is that sometimes they are answered, and sometimes they are not. Sometimes we get the job, sometimes we don't. Sometimes our loved ones get well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes our business is successful, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes we find the man or woman to marry, sometimes we don't. As a result, we are left with very peace of mind as we worry or even obsess about the outcome of important situations in our lives. By definition, petition prayers have expectations behind them, and I've already discussed the suffering that results from expectations. Even though petitionary prayers sometimes work, they offer no guarantees. If our prayers are not answered, we can't help but feel disappointed or even betrayed. I believe that we set ourselves up for an immense amount of fear, anger, disappointment, and all sorts of other negative emotions when we pray in this way. Let me offer you 3 other types of prayer that bring us the peace of mind we are seeking every time we pray. You will see how vastly they differ from petitionary prayer. Prayers of trust. I spend a lot of time teaching people across the country how to deal with their fears. Towards the end of each class, I ask my students, how many of you believe in God? Almost everyone raises his or her hand. I then ask the question, then why are you afraid? And there is a stunned look on many of their faces. Others nod and smile as they recognize the crux of the problem. I point out that obviously they hold God in their heads, but they don't hold God in their hearts. They don't trust the ability of the divine energy to lead them in the right direction. By definition, petitionary prayers say that we don't trust the grand design. We don't trust the rhyme or reason for things that happen in our lives and in the lives of others we care about. We don't trust the great wisdom of the universe. We ask for things to be our way, not God's way. We play God when our need is really to trust God. Prayers of trust can teach us to hold God in our hearts, where the fear disappears and the peace of mind begins. Trust in a higher power and trust in ourselves are clearly the missing elements in a society filled with struggle. What does a prayer of trust, a prayer that touches the higher self, sound like? The following is a good example. Dear God, I trust that no matter what happens in my life, it is for my highest good, and no matter what happens in the lives of those I love, it is for their highest good. From all things that are put before us, we shall become stronger and more loving people. How powerful this kind of prayer is. It asks for nothing. It has no attachment behind it. It says that even if I don't find that man, even if I don't get that job, even if my loved one doesn't get well, I know that whatever happens is for the highest good of all concerned. This isn't just a rationalization to make us feel better. As I said earlier, the so-called unwanted situations in my life, such as my bout with cancer and my divorce, ultimately enriched me immeasurably. In more and more situations, I find myself saying, "Okay, God, take over now." Understand that turning matters over to our higher selves or a higher power, whatever that is for you, is not a way to abdicate responsibility. It is simply having the trust that when we have done our best, the future will all happen perfectly. Prayers of gratitude. If God were human, he or she would have an incredible inferiority complex. As I pointed out earlier, so much is given to us and so little is appreciated. Infusing our prayers with gratitude is a wonderful way to notice all that we have been given. When we are grateful, peace enters our hearts and our neediness abates. As far as I am concerned, seeing the abundance around us is seeing God. If we don't see the abundance in our lives, by definition, we have lost sight of God. What does a prayer of gratitude sound like? It's very simple. I am grateful for all the beauty and opportunity you put into my life. And in all that I do, I shall seek to be a channel for your love. Again, see how differently this touches our heart when compared with the petitionary prayer. This prayer says, I am aware of your generosity, and I will share it with everyone I meet. A prayer of gratitude makes us see all things anew. When we put our prayer of trust together with our prayer of gratitude, we get a powerful prayer indeed. Dear God, I trust that no matter what happens in my life, it is for my highest good. And no matter what happens in the lives of those I love, it is for their highest good. From all things you put before us, we shall become strong and more loving people. I am grateful for all the beauty and opportunity you put into life, and in all that I do, I shall seek to be a channel for your love. Take this prayer into your heart and notice the struggle abating and the peace entering your being. Prayers of Communion. Prayers of communion need not have any words. They are simply about being in the presence of the radiant spirit of a higher power. In this place, the feeling of being lost in this world totally vanishes. We are home, and we are safe. My personal vision of a higher power is one of universal light that I can tap into and commune with at will. I often enter this vibrant state of silent prayer through the following visualization. I breathe in deeply, and then imagine myself breathing out through a large opening at the top of my head into a vast sky of luminous, healing light. Next, I imagine myself breathing back in some of this luminous, healing light through the opening at the top of my head until it fills up my entire body from head to toe. Then I imagine myself breathing out, radiating this universal light out into the world through my breath and through every pore of my body, touching everything as far and as wide as my mind can see. I then breathe into my being the light from the world around me. As I repeat this process over and over again, I feel a wonderful cyclical connection between the universe light, my entire being, and the rest of the world. It gives me an incredible feeling of peace and radiance in a very short time. My thoughts are calmed, and I feel myself a very powerful and loving being. I am touched by a divine radiance. I have the reassuring sense that I am part of something much bigger my limited mind allows me to understand. I am connected. I belong to all things. When in this beautiful state of being, the concerns of the earthly plane are diminished immensely. I am connected to an unbelievable sweetness. Over time, I have learned that despite what is happening in my life, this haven of luminous power is always there for me, as it is there for everyone. All we have to do is to create our own means of tapping into it and embracing it. When we are sitting in communion with God, we are not asking for anything to be different from the way it is. We are letting go and letting God, as the saying goes. I ask you, could it be that something as simple as prayer could ultimately be the force that heals the world? I wouldn't be surprised. I would now like to introduce you to what has been called a moving meditation, and in its own way, it is a prayer of gratitude, trust, and communion, all combined. I am speaking of a form of the martial arts called Tai Chi. I remember my first introduction to Tai Chi. It was a beautiful day. The sun was pouring into my window as I awoke in my hotel room in San Francisco. I got out of bed and went to the window to look at the wonderful view. There, something out of the ordinary caught my attention. In the park across the street, I noticed many Chinese men and women of all ages doing a graceful, peaceful, meditative dance. Some were dressed very casually, and others were in suits, obviously on their way to work. I was mesmerized by the sweetness of the slow, fluid, seemingly purposeful movements. You have to understand that I am a person who is repelled by anything that looks like exercise. But this set of movements was totally drawing me in, and I had to learn what it was all about. And so began my Tai Chi adventure. What I learned was that Tai Chi comes from the teachings of the Tao. There are many definitions of Tai Chi, and they are all in harmony with the idea of moving effortlessly and freely with the flow of nature. What a perfect dance in today's times of struggle. I also learned that dancing Tai Chi in the park was not a phenomenon only in San Francisco. Millions of people in China practice Tai Chi, usually in groups, every morning before work. There are many forms of Tai Chi. It can be studied as a strict discipline with exact positions and years of study, or it can be simply enjoyed as a moving meditation or dance that helps to center us, thus keeping us focused on our power, our love, and our connection to all things. For the purposes of ending the struggle, the latter is definitely preferable. This simple dance of Tai Chi encompasses the essence of everything I've spoken about in this program thus far. Releasing, embracing, meditating, being joyful, being peaceful, being mindful, being balanced, creating rituals, giving thanks, slowing down, knowing that all is well, transcending the petty, climbing the ladder to true success, feeling safe, having patience, flowing with the universe, and more. Obviously, I can't demonstrate the movements of Tai Chi via the spoken word. I can only encourage you to discover them for yourself. Let me suggest that you order a very beautiful Tai Chi videotape featuring Nikki Winston, which will allow you not only to take in the inherent beauty of Tai Chi, but also immediately learn it. Her address is Win International, 110 15th Street, Del Mar, California, 92014. I also suggest you contact the Living Tao Foundation, from which you can get a catalog of the videotapes of Chungliang Ao Wang, one of the foremost Tai Chi experts in the world. They will also provide you with a schedule of his workshops, which are conducted all over the world. His address is Post Office Box 846, Urbana, Illinois, 61801. Understand that you do not have to be a great dancer to study Tai Chi. Even if you have the proverbial 2 left feet, it will work beautifully for you. Tai Chi can be practiced by strapping athletes or by feeble senior citizens. Even those confined to a wheelchair can derive enormous benefits from bringing these movements and metaphors into their everyday lives. One of the most noticeable features of Tai Chi is its hypnotically slow pace. It's as though you are seeing it through the lens of a slow-motion camera. And you dance Tai Chi, it is as though your world is slowing down in an incredibly peaceful way and allowing you to look mindfully and deeply at everything you see. Not only is there a feeling of peace in the actual movements of Tai Chi, but the profound meaning of each movement satisfies a deep yearning within our being. When both are combined, the benefits that are attributed to Tai Chi are enormous. Tai Chi is not only a moving meditation, it is also a powerful set of affirmations translated in the body. These affirmations tell us, I am free, I am fluid, I am connected, I am rich, I am whole, I embrace it all, I am nourished, I have much to give, I can soar, I am at peace, let go. Affirmations work best when we are able to store their messages within our body. The affirmations of Tai Chi establish an energy of power in and around us. We don't have to accept the negativity of the chatter in our mind and show it another way. The key is to keep practicing Tai Chi until it inserts itself into our everyday lives, until we can say to ourselves, I live my life in a Tai Chi way. To me, living in a Tai Chi way means functioning naturally and smoothly, in an uncluttered way, total tune with the universe, with all our expectations and clinging dropping to the wayside as we learn the secret of flowing with all that happens around us. That's a tall order, but something definitely worth working toward. Obviously, Tai Chi doesn't change the outside world. What it does do is teach us how to stay centered in the midst of any turmoil surrounding us. It gives us our sea legs, so to speak. It also helps us return home when we have lost our way. When we have that stillness in the depths of our being, we have a haven to which we can always return. And what's best about it is that it's a portable haven. We can take it with us wherever we go. So give yourself the gift of Tai Chi. If you have children, include them in the practice of this beautiful dance. How wonderful for them to learn at an early age the life-affirming lessons it can teach them. As we harmonize our body, mind, and higher self at the beginning of each day, we walk the world in a totally powerful and loving way. What a gift to ourselves and to the world around us. Thomas F. Crum once wrote, "Instead of seeing the rug being pulled from under us, we can learn to dance on a shifting carpet." Over the years, I've asked myself how we could shift our relationship to all that is around us to create a sense of calm when everything around us is chaotic, so that the rug never gets pulled from under us. If we learned that, we would have come a long way toward ending the struggle and dancing with life. The closest I've come to finding an answer has to do with the art of centering. As I see it, centering is a process that allows the body and mind to align with the higher self. When our body and mind are out of alignment with our higher self, we are easily toppled over, out of balance. Hence our task seems clear. We need to learn the tools for helping us to create this magical alignment. Understand that the tools I've offered in my earlier works and within this audio program are meant to help us achieve a centered state. They are tools for shifting our relationship with everything around us. For example, we use affirmations or visualizations, we are coming back to center. When we meditate or pray or dance our Tai Chi dance, we are coming back to center. When we say yes to our universe, we are coming back to center, and so on. We are taking back our power. We are not allowing the outside world to affect our stability or our happiness. If you notice, these are all tools that help the mind align with the higher self. Using these tools consistently, we can learn to think in a way that centers us, thereby increasing our sense of inner power and flow and our connection to the world around us. This is in contrast to our thinking in a way that fragments us, thus creating a sense of helplessness and fear. The martial art of Aikido teaches much about the principles of centering, not only emotionally, but physically as well. It talks of three major components of centering: energy, the body's center of gravity, and flow. Qi is the universal energy that exists within us, a powerful energy we can connect with any time we wish. The Dantian is the body's center of gravity, a spot about 1.5 to 3 inches below the navel. This is where the power of Qi is held, and our goal is to let our actions derive from this always available point of balance and power. Finally, there is the immense power of flow. Imagine your Dantian as an infinite source of Qi coursing through and from you, gushing forward to infinity. This powerful flow is a source of unlimited energy, much stronger than mere muscle fibers. How can we use these elements in our daily lives? Here's a simple example. If someone is acting hostilely toward you, silently project the words, "I love you," while sending a warm, healing flow of light from your Dantian onto his or her being. You may be surprised to find the person you are in conflict with changes her tune considerably. The hardest part of this exercise is keeping your energy positive when you are the subject of an attack. Not easy, but remember that everyone in our lives is a practiced person. And when someone is throwing hostility your way, you have a perfect opportunity to practice projecting, "I love you." As we learn more about energy, centering, and flow, we learn that we can direct a positive ray of energy from our Dantian to any person and place outside our body. For example, some people enter a room and seem to disappear into the crowd. Their Qi is contracted. Others loom with vibrancy. Their Qi is expanded. Focus on what you are going to give from your center of power and love, rather than on what we're going to get in the way of approval or acceptance from other people. Walk into any room with an intention to make everyone feel great about themselves by radiating your loving energy from your center to everyone around you. Can you see how this kind of approach would take away your fear and make you much more attractive to others? Look into the principles of Aikido. It has much to offer. In this chaotic world, it is so easy to be pulled out of our center. But it is very reassuring to know that we always have the tools to bring ourselves back into a place of power once again. We only have to notice when it's time to pull ourselves together again, and again, and again. Let me ask you something. When's the last time you can remember walking around with a smile on your face, a laugh in your belly, lightness in your heart, and a sense of exuberance at the sheer wonder of being alive? That long ago, huh? Well, you're not alone. It seems that we live in a very heavy world at the present moment. There is so much that seems to be weighing us down. Lightness and fun are missing elements in most people's lives. So what is the answer? How do we bring back the twinkle in our eye that comes from the radiant light of our inner joy? First and foremost, we need to learn how to lighten up. And here are some ideas to help you. First, plant a smile on your face. A smile is an instant lightener. It can change all manner of things, and it is so easy to create. Thich Nhat Hanh, a renowned Zen monk, tells us to recite the following 4 lines silently as we breathe in and out. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. A smile is a wonderful aid in helping us say yes to life. Second, learn to laugh. It's easy to create a smile, but much harder to create a laugh. But create it we must, because laughter is very healthy. It changes our internal chemistry from negative to positive. Laughter releases tension. As with a smile, laughter needs to be part of our regular routine. Barry Stevens tells us that when she wakes up in the morning, she stretches, then she laughs. At first, the laughter is artificial, she says, but soon it becomes ridiculous, and then it becomes real laughter. Annette Goodhart, whose work specializes on laughter, says, fake it till you make it. Fake the laughter until it really begins to happen. This works because the diaphragm is stupid. It can't tell if you're faking or not. You don't even need a reason to laugh. In fact, things can be going badly in your life, and you can still laugh. As Annette further tells us, if you're going to be miserable, you might as well enjoy it. My sister Marcia and I have mastered the art of using laughter to turn something painful into something light. When one of us calls the other upset about something in life, we end up laughing ourselves silly. It's not that what we're upset about isn't important and doesn't have to be dealt with, but humor creates a shift in perception that allows us to better center ourselves in a powerful place. We lighten up and detach from the drama, which allows us to see the more important larger picture, which is filled with many blessings. It balances the heaviness of the pain we are feeling with the lightness that comes from humor. And balance is what creates a world devoid of struggle. As long as you're not laughing at anyone's expense, laughter is indeed a gift for which to be grateful. Bring laughter into all parts of your life, even as you go off to sleep. My husband and I used to watch the news before going to bed, but no more. Now we watch only comedy shows. Sleep is much better that way. Third, learn the art of jumping for joy. Many of us have not jumped for joy in a very long time. The reason is that we take so many things for granted. As you incorporate more tools of appreciation into your life, jumping for joy will become a regular occurrence. We must remember to celebrate every inner or outer win in our lives. I guess the greatest win of all is simply waking up every morning to the privilege of being alive. That's cause enough for jumping for joy. And finally, become high on life. Beyond jumping for joy is something the Indian Vedas call Ananda, which means bliss or inner joy. Bliss is something that radiates throughout and beyond our being. Even in the midst of very challenging circumstances, we can learn how to turn our inner dial to joy instead of misery, as Barry Neil Kaufman shows us in his moving book, Happiness is a Choice. Barry speaks of his and his wife's personal experience of totally healing neurologically impaired and dysfunctioning heart. When this potentially devastating circumstance first came into their life, they actively chose happiness instead of misery, and it made all the difference in the world. It is interesting that someone who also had a dysfunctioning child bitterly chastised Barry for taking something that was terrible, making believe it was beautiful. Barry gently replied, "Did you ever consider that you might be taking something that's beautiful and making believe it's terrible?" Wow, a lesson for us all. Yes, happiness is a choice. We can find much to be joyous about in any situation in our life simply by turning our inner dial to joy. In all my books and tapes, I've talked about the spiritual journey. Let me emphasize that nowhere is it written that the spiritual journey has to be somber and joyless. In fact, the one characteristic that I have found to be universally present in highly spiritual people is their enchanting sense of humor. They have learned the wisdom of laughter and lightness. I think if we were asked if there were any regrets as we reach the later stages of our lives, most of us would answer, "My biggest regret is that I didn't enjoy life more." 3 of the higher self purposes that I have created for myself at various times over the years are to learn and teach about love, to open my heart, to focus on giving instead of getting. I have now created a newer higher self purpose for myself with the hope it will govern my life for many years to come. It is to let go, lighten up, laugh more, play more, and fully embrace my experiences of life. As Jan Mitchell says, "Lord, give me patience. Now." Yes, now, right now. When it comes to spiritual growth, such as I've described in this audio program, it's amazing how impatient we are. It's important that I remind you of the characteristics of spiritual growth. First, spiritual growth is slow. There are no quick fixes that I know of. There are quick and easy tools, but they are meant to be used for a lifetime. Second, when we think nothing is happening, it is. There is always an unseen world of energy moving and changing within and around us. Trust is the essential ingredient for feeling peaceful while these unseen forces do their work. Third, spiritual growth is not linear. It has its spurts, its plateaus, and its backsteps. Fourth, spiritual growth is never-ending. Never-ending means that there is always much more to learn. You never get there. And fifth, spiritual growth is not a destination. It is a forever process of learning and expanding and exploring and discovering. Therefore, when you focus on the goal, your attention is misplaced. It's important to see yourself as a perpetual beginner. This is one time when being a beginner is better than being an expert. If we truly saw ourselves as perpetual beginners, we would automatically understand that we always have much, much more to learn, that we won't always get it right, and that we can't be expected to be perfect. If we saw ourselves as perpetual beginners, we would be much kinder to ourselves. Life is simply about the little baby steps that are always propelling us forward into new adventures. But it's all baby steps. We never arrive. There is always something more to learn. Which spiritual path do we take? Your entry into a spiritual path could be as simple as going to a bookstore and looking in the self-help, New Age, and psychology sections. Pick a book that speaks to you or draws your attention. Or your entry could be volunteering to serve others, such as helping to prepare lunches for those who have no food, Or it could be meditation if you feel the need for quieting the mind. Or it could be affirmation tapes to help you begin to eradicate the negativity of the chatter in your mind. Or all of the above. Experiment. Trust that you know what is right for you at any particular time. If you don't trust what is right for you, ask your higher self to show you the way. Then pay attention. One guaranteed way to know that you are on an appropriate path is to ask yourself, does this path have a heart? Does what I am trying to do bring more love and caring into the world? And don't worry about taking the wrong road. If we learn and grow, even from our mistakes, then they aren't mistakes. We are learning every step of the way. Let me debunk a popular myth about spiritual growth, which is, when we are spiritually evolved, no manner of harm shall come into our lives. This myth creates a feeling of guilt if bad things happen to us, as if we did something wrong. I don't believe this myth at all. I believe that so-called bad things happen to all of us, whether we are spiritually evolving or not. But when we are spiritually evolving, we can handle all that happens to us in a loving and powerful way, knowing we will find some wonderful piece of wisdom from it all. This, of course, is the secret of ending the struggle and dancing with life. Questions will always come up. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to find the answers. Many questions have no answers. When the mistrust of the lower self wants to know why, simply tell it, because. No need to explain any further than that. From the perspective of the higher self, it's all about trust. Perhaps one day you will live into the answers, perhaps you won't. In truth, it really doesn't matter. When trust is there, your life works beautifully, whether you know the answers or not. I have lived many answers over the course of my lifetime, and I still live with many questions. But finding answers isn't so important to me anymore. As I increase my trust in the grand design, I know that it's all happening perfectly, in its own time and in its own way. And I learn to live very peacefully with that. I've presented many ideas in this program, all meant to show you that you have the power to create more and more exquisite moments in your life. These exquisite moments come with the creation of an inner trust. Trust in the process, trust in yourself, and trust in the divine mystery of it all. You deserve the best that life has to offer. And it's reassuring to know that you don't have to go outside yourself to find the best. It lies within your very being. The best is your higher self, the part of you that sees everything as a glorious adventure, the part of you that embraces the abundance of gifts that are placed before you, the part of you that notices and is grateful for the miracle of it all, the part of you that knows you are a vibrantly meaningful part of the grand design. The most important thing you can do for yourself is to follow the path that takes you to the best of who you are. Finding the enormous amount of power and love that lies within is the secret to ending the struggle and dancing with life. So commit to this wonderful journey of discovery. Remember, commitment creates a powerful, radiant energy that activates all sorts of miracles within and around you. I've seen these miracles in my life, and you will see them in yours. Trust me when I tell you that there is nothing that can stop you once you make that commitment to create a life of trust, peace, beauty, lightness, abundance, love, and joy. Embrace the journey. Embrace who you are. Embrace all there is. From my heart to yours, I'm Susan Jeffers.